You have two eyes, huh? Do you understand the game a bit? Yeah, have a look.
I'm not saying anything to you in particular because I know you're not too accurate with your reporting.
That's what you paid
so you're
for.
Saying I should resign. So you're saying I should resign?
I think
that's
you should,
your opinion. Is that right?
That's my
opinion.
opinion.
Fine.
Are you going to resign then?
No, of course I'm not going to resign.
Let's simplify things next time.
Boom! The A-League is back, baby. And we had some great moments and we had some terrible moments and we had some no moments in the F3 derby. Nick Debano joins me. Joey Lynch joins me. I'm Nick Stoll. Guys, Debano, I'll start with you. Just immediate first impressions on football is back. We've been doing this podcast for months now where we actually haven't had any games to talk about, and it's been going for 2 hours.
Does the NPL not exist to you, Nick Stoll?
Okay, blah, 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 NPL, there was Matildas, the Socceroos games, there was friendlies, okay, da. But this ostensibly, I didn't pronounce that word correctly. Ostensibly, this podcast. I was trying to say essentially. Look, this podcast was created to come after. This is why we do it on a Sunday after the A-League finishes for the round. Although the round hasn't finished because of the F3 derby, but whatever. We come on and we talk about it. It's kind of big your Sunday night show. And
Sunday afternoon. It's still daylight. I feel weird.
Okay, well, man, wait, all this correcting.
Like there's sun behind
Be more supportive, all right? Look, Fred Durst, stop getting angry. All right, Debano.
Man, I'm wearing a Nebraska Cornhuskers hat. Fred Durst wouldn't hang with Nebraska.
But wouldn't Fred Durst has a red hat, puts it backwards, so...
Yeah, okay. St. Louis Cardinals hat.
Look,
I can't believe you guys aren't up to date on your 2000s and new medal.
In the comments, I want to hear
you guys aren't rolling. It's just
Fred Durst was lame at the time. Never mind
Stoll,
now.
Stoll, to answer your question, I feel like we're back exactly where we were a year ago when we started this show, and it was a Sunday, and it was exactly the same weather, and it was like, what the hell just happened? We're back here again. It just feels like deja vu. There was some good moments. There was some really boring moments this weekend, to be brutally honest. Like some of the games, especially today, were, they were a bit of a chore.
Sometimes guy, Nick Debano.
Yeah, definitely. Just channeling my inner Reno. But yeah, like there was some fun moments. It's good to have the A-League back, but God, there were some moments that were a tough watch. So normal programming has definitely resumed, and looking forward to getting into all 5 of the games that were there. We haven't even had, as you said, that 6th game was one of the games I was most looking forward to, and unfortunately, Gosford became a swimming pool.
Look, as always, your comments are very important, and as I'm hosting, I will be relying on them heavily for content. If they are spam bots, if they are relationship advice, if they are food suggestions, all will be welcomed on this pod. Stephen Paletti says via YouTube, TNC in daylight. I'm shocked. Yes. So the plan is for this season that we'll try and come after the last A-League match when that finishes. So if it finishes at 7:30, we'll come at 7:30. If it finishes a bit earlier, like the one did today, we'll come a bit earlier.
Hell, if Wellington at 1 p.m., if that's the last kickoff of the round, if that's the 1 o'clock kickoff, we'll be on at 3. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly, baby. And by the way, one of the reasons I wanted to move it earlier was because I want to be able to cook dinner later, because all we've been talking about in the chat is sauces and da-da-da. Joey, tell the people, what have you been cooking this week?
Yesterday, I made 3 kilos worth of pork and beef meatballs for myself and my partner. So that'll feed us for, 4 or 5 days. And I've also got some turkey mince that I need to... I was tossing up whether to do is put some lemon and sage in it or make cranberry with it. I'm going to go cranberry. No, I'm going to go with the cranberry. I like the cranberry. So cranberry. Cranberry.
I feel like me and Debano are on the same flavor palette,
Well, we both have Greek backgrounds, so I'm not surprised.
Okay. Blake Hampton, 11. I love this comment already. Trudged through monsoonal rain to see 15 minutes of Max Burgess last night. No regrets. You want to get on this show? Just praise Max Burgess. You're straight up there. Praise Daniel Arzani. Straight up there. Praise, who else do we like? Ben Halloran. Straight up there.
There'll be plenty of players that praise Ben Halloran.
Maybe not this one. Yeah. Look, by the way, we're going to get into it a bit later, but man, fantasy, what a train wreck that was for all of us.
Let's not talk about A-League fantasy.
Do you guys do this thing it doesn't matter. Like I play fantasy Premier League, I play fantasy La Liga, whatever it is. Every season I start the season like, my team's going to kill it. It's embarrassing how much I'm going to lead the league by. And then this, oh my God, Lacroix was ridiculously terrible. half my team didn't start. I had players rained out. Oof, it was. I think I don't even know if I had anyone score a goal. Like,
can I just
seriously.
say one thing about the panic of fantasy? And Joey actually like borderline like almost spat out his drink when he heard this, and he had an almost borderline go at me in the box on Friday about this. You know how when you pick your team, you're automatically your most expensive player becomes your captain, right? Now, my most expensive player was Ben Garuccio, and I forgot to change it. And Ben Garuccio got 1 point and 2 as a captain. And they let out a big in the box, and Joey straight away was like, "How the hell didn't you change it?" And I've been asking myself that question for the last 2 days. And yeah, fair to say, egg on my face, because Josh is beating me by like 25 points, and he's had one less player play than me, not even including the guys that didn't even feature in the F3 derby. So it's just been rough.
That's right.
We got a special section for fantasy, so
we'll get into it. Look, so you held back there swearing, Nick DeBano, and just as we start talking about Melbourne City, Western United, what I want to know is Robbie Thompson's commentary went viral, on that Jamie Young shot. Now, here's the thing. Here's what I want to know. Now, basically, the world thinks that he said the F word, right? Now, I personally am of the belief that a commentator should get one swear per season. All right, so just the most amazing goal happens. Think Ben Garuccio's backheel thing, and someone just goes "F me," like that's incredible, right? It would be amazing. It'd be better than goal of the season if the commentator used
Brian Taylor on Boyd's goal in the grand final areas.
Look, I'll have to trust you. I don't know who Brian Taylor is, who Boyd is.
You don't know who BT is.
I know who he is. He's
Roman
the guy Vince's friends. Vince's mate. I don't know. Look. But
they hang out in their $1 million apartments in Sydney and they look in the harbour.
You should get one swear as a commentator. But do you think he actually swore? It just would be amazing to me if he actually did.
I'll take Daniel McBreen's word for it. He was sitting right next to him and said no. But it certainly sounded like he
What did he say? I think he said but. I think he said but. I think it's but.
I don't think he said the F word.
They're still calling them from a studio in Sydney, so we couldn't walk across and ask him.
But either way, I mean, in that moment, if he did drop the F word, I don't blame him. Like, how much happened in those 30 seconds? Like, shot save, comes back, of course you might let off a big, just drop it. Like, as Joey mentioned, BT in the grand final, like there was a big goal and then he just went nuts with it. And it's one of the probably one of the greatest commentary moments for the sheer emotion of it. And the guys apparently actually listening to him speak about it on a podcast recently, and he was like, the guys at Triple M, like my executives, absolutely loved it and said, like, you actually just captured the moment. We were all thinking it, like, So why not? But I mean, I'll take his word for it. He didn't swear. But it was a brilliant save from Jamie Young anyway. But before we even get into the rest of the game, he made so many good saves on Friday night. If it wasn't for him, that 2-1 scoreline could have easily ballooned to something around 3-4 because that was he had another monster game between the sticks.
All right, guys, let us know what you think Robbie Thompson said if he didn't swear, and let us also know what A-League moment would make you swear. Joey, you were at the Melbourne City Western United game. Give us your thoughts on it, kind of what it means for Melbourne City, what it means for Western United.
2-1 flattered Western United. Before we get to talking about Leo Lacroix's disaster class, it was certainly a game it felt like it was being played on Melbourne City's terms. Western United struggled to play out from the back, which was, something that happens to them last season as well. When they were denied transition, they would get pegged back in their own half at times and struggle to progress the ball. Jamie Young last season had a series of shaky moments when he came under pressure and defenders and midfielders weren't showing for the ball, and nervy moments. So perhaps hints that it's only round one. You cannot overreact to anything that takes place in this round. However, you can certainly potentially see signs of trends carrying over or new foundations being laid, and that is going to be something to watch moving forwards. That the game, Western United felt like they were denied the opportunity to play the game the way that they wanted by Melbourne City's press. For Melbourne City, I'll let Damano talk about Valon Borussia. Obviously, he was great, but yeah, it certainly was promising signs for Patrick Isnorbo's sides, although maybe promising on the sense or maybe delivering on expectations, giving how high expectations are for Melbourne City and the talent that they have assembled, albeit they were helped out by Leo Lacroix probably having the worst game that he's had since he arrived in Australia.
Dabano, what were your thoughts? Why do you think Western United struggled so much? Because last season we saw them be so solid defensively, so hard to break down, and it wasn't the case this time.
Well, Joey already touched on the main point. I mean, I don't think Leo Lacroix will play a worse game ever. And I think, he just had a really off night, and it just seemed like it was one of those nights where nothing went right. And funnily enough, he actually got the assist in the end for the goal, but everything else in the defensive half, he just looked really shaky, looked nervous. Just really uncharacteristic mistakes from someone who's usually quite a cool head in those moments. As mentioned about playing out from the back, they, in those instances, really missed Alexander Prijovic for a number of different reasons. He's the bailout target if you want to go long because he can bring the ball to ground with his hold-up ability, but also his aerial presence. But also what he does offer when you go forward is he really functions well with the guys in around him, with the likes of Connor Payne and Lockie Wales and Dylan Wenzel-Halls, of having that presence up top who's able to drag defenders. He's able to get those little flicks like we saw in the finals, which worked to aplomb last year. His positioning is great. So when they're able to get past that first layer of press, which last year Western United, to their credit, did really well against Melbourne City, especially in that 2-2 draw late last year when they were able to attack the fullbacks, they just couldn't get to it this time around. And they really, really struggled in those moments. But as Joey mentioned, to Melbourne City's credit, I mean, they played with a lot of energy. This is the exact sort of response you'd expect for a team that probably by all recollection and everything else, they probably would feel a bit humiliated about the grand final loss last year and would want to come out of the blocks, set the record straight off the back and really make a statement straight away. And they did. They played with energy. There was a lot of spice, like a lot of big tackles. We saw the little sort of fisticuffs between Andrew Naboo and Connor Payne, where, it was a bit of push and shove and everything. There was a bit of spice in those early moments, and you just had this feeling Melbourne City really wanted to send a statement, and they did. Valon Borussia spoke about it after the game. The players were really motivated for this game, and they really wanted to come out and show something, and they did. And to their credit, I mean, with all the last-minute absentees, I mean, Kisnorbo spoke about it. They lost three players on the basically 24 hours before the game. Curtis Good, Nuno Reis, Florent Berengay. They had to kind of shuffle things a little bit.
I don't think it was the 24 hours. I think he was just telling fibs in his pre-game presser. And there goes Nick Dabano in his microwave. And Nick Stoll's on mute. This podcast is going fantastically.
All right. One second. Here we go. I was just going to say, why do you think PK was fibbing with that?
Oh, because he just never gives anything away. I don't think Curtis Good and all that were playing when he did his pre-game press conference. He just hates to give anything away. So, I mean, I'll pick up sort of another interesting talking point. Hopefully we can get back to Nick Dabano when he comes back on. Marco Tilio starts on the bench. This was, I think, not just a major talking point for the match itself, but obviously for the Socceroos and their World Cup campaign. Tilio, he comes on with about 20 minutes left. He actually has a chance to score at the end as well, and he sort of fluffs it. And it was interesting.
Is his confidence gone? Is his confidence shot, do you think?
One would have to think that it's certainly not good. It might not be bad. I'm not going to speak for Tilio, and his mindset, but in my estimation, it certainly can't be good because every player wants to start. No player wants to sit on the bench. So every player wants to start. And
especially round one. And you're pushing for Socceroos.
Yeah, you've only got 6 games to impress Graham Arnold, and he's starting on the bench, and he's only coming on. It's not like he was a halftime sub either. He came on in the 70th minute. So he really, around approximately the 70th minute. So he didn't have much time to do anything. And then the one chance that he did get, he missed it. I mean, I asked Kisnorbo about this post-game, and he talked about, I'll read the exact quote. I go on my feel and players that have done well in the preseason, and I thought Naboot deserved to play. Naboot starting, obviously, it appears as though maybe perhaps Kisnorbo there revealing that it is Naboot and Tilio competing for minutes. Just because Marco got picked for the Socceroos doesn't mean anyone's an automatic starter. You need to work hard to get into the team, and he got his chance today. I was happy for him when he came on. I picked the best 11 that I think going into the game. Just because you represent Australia doesn't mean you're an automatic starter in this team. Now, that could, reading into that, that could be sending a message. That could be, or it could just be, it could be benign and Tilio could be starting next week when Melbourne City visit Brisbane. We don't know, but that was an interesting statement from Kisnorbo. And I guess the problem for Tilio is that of all the attacking options that Melbourne City had, Florent Bernier is probably not going to come back for a little while, I think, because he's done a hamstring, and at his age and with his history of hamstring issues, you've got to think he's not going to get rushed back in. But Valon Berisha is in there now, and his performance is obviously going to demand more minutes going forward. Lecky and Naboot, both of them had serviceable games. Neither of them did anything that would have me thinking that Kisnorbo is going to want to make a change. So on current trajectory, Marco Tilio is not going to get the type of minutes that he needs to push for a Socceroos appearance.
Someone is playing around with the banners down the bottom.
Sorry, I realized there's a typo on Taryn's last name, and I was trying to fix it. And I just pressed a few too many buttons. Sorry about
all
that,
good,
guys.
all good. Someone fixed the typo in the banners. Debano, while we welcome you back, and I ask you to comment on a couple of things that came through. Firstly, A-Liga, great name by the way, via YouTube. Valon Berisha is next level. Do you think, I mean, it's one game in, but do you think he's going to be an absolute kind of superstar of the competition?
I'm not going to go too long with this because just in case my computer shuts down on me, it wasn't the microwave this time, guys. It was just my malfunctioning Dell. In terms of Valon Berisha, guys, I think he's going to be a great signing. I mean, it's no secret this guy's been playing in some of the top divisions in the world over the past few years, and his quality has shone through. Like, he's played over 50 caps for between two different nations. He's played in the Bundesliga, Red Bull Salzburg in the Austrian Bundesliga. He's played for Lazio. He's played for Rem in Ligue 1. He's played literally everywhere. It's not like he's been, a player with sporadic bench appearances. He's played a lot of good quality football, and that quality was on show from the get-go. I have to admit, I have to eat a big slice of humble pie and apologize to Joey for my thoughts that Tilio would probably start ahead of him, because I thought maybe there might be a bit of easing him in. But you know what? I'll happily eat that piece of humble pie, and I'll happily say, Joey, you were right. But yeah, he's going to be a great player, and also a great personality. That post-game interview was sensational, just really raw. And just those
seems
moments.
like he cares. Like, that's another
Absolutely.
thing. Is how many foreigners that come here? Let's be honest. Maybe they care, but a lot of them seem like they don't. And he really invested. He seems emotionally invested in this team.
And he said, like, I wasn't part of the team that lost the grand final last year, but I really wanted to make sure that we got one up on Western United to start the season. And his work in the midfield, like sort of zipping in between the lines, playing that role, sort of just in behind the front three, he was sensational. Great replacement for Conor Metcalf. And with Florent Bernier out, there was a lot that was riding on his shoulders, especially with the way City lined up in midfield, with O'Neill and Gamulka sitting a lot further back, which gave Berisha he had to carry sort of a lot more responsibility in terms of setting things up for the front three, and he did a great job. So, you know what? Signs looking good for him. I'm just curious to see what will change when Berengay's fit. That hamstring injury, we don't know how long he's going to be out for, but PK did sort of allude to the fact that, I mean, he's going to take some time. So whether City stick with that midfield setup, which I genuinely think they will, that we might see that revert when Berengay comes back to sort of two 8s and playing with 1 6 instead of 2 6s and an 8. So yeah, curious to see how that all plays out, but good start. Big tick from me.
just quickly, a little response from both of you guys on this. Jack Pantelios, hate to say, but Jamie Young is the GOAT A-League goalkeeper. You got Michael Theo, you've got Eugene Galekovic, you've
Matt
got
Ryan in the early days was bloody good for those few seasons.
Sure, I guess that's the thing is like, how do you compare? But Jamie Young, he's kind of longevity, but Michael Theo won 5 championships as A-League goalkeeper. I mean, that's pretty hard to beat. Any of you guys agree with Jack there? GOAT A-League goalkeeper? Sorry, Jack, it's a tough one. Good point from Joe K Football. In my injury, massive blow. Joey, agree?
Agree, and it sounds like he's going to be set for a decent stint on the sidelines. John Aloisi saying post-game that his AC joint popped out and was up around here, which isn't good. And admittedly, your shoulders and your arms aren't as important in football as they are in other sports, but it still sounds like that's going to be a decent stint on the sidelines for Tomoki Imai, which will leave the hyphen Nikolai Topor-Stanley as the presumptive starter in that centre-back pairing with Leo Lacroix and Ben Collins potentially, as can see some more minutes as a result. I think, but that's going to be... coming into the season, we wouldn't have expected defensive issues to potentially be an Achilles heel for Western United, but here we go, round 1. Imai injured and Leo Lacroix has his worst game in Australia.
Yeah, I think it definitely, and it will be interesting to see how things change with Topor-Stanley in the lineup. But also, I mean, would they maybe turn to Jacob Tratt? That's one name we haven't mentioned. I mean, they do have more centre back depth this year, but that injury by all sounds really nasty. Like a dislocated shoulder like that. I mean, he could be out for, we were hypothesizing, it could be a few months. Some of those shoulder injuries with an AC joint, they can be really, really bad. And you can be out for quite some time, or you can be back within a couple of weeks.
All right. Just before we move on to Macarthur, Brisbane, A-Liga says Tom Glover, best game since 2021 grand final. Could be the influence of the new goalkeeper coach with his confidence. Look, he had a bad season last season, both in the A-League and when they went away for the Asian Champions League as well. And it did seem like, he had a real kind of lack of confidence. Did you guys notice an improvement on Friday night?
I did, and I made this exact same point to friend of the podcast, Anna Harrington, in the box, that there is a new goalkeeping coach that's come into Melbourne City, former head coach of Saudi Arabia's under-21 side, and it genuinely looks like Glover is at least carrying himself with a little more confidence. As I said, you can't extrapolate anything from round 1 onto the length of a full season, but it looks like that was a shrewd bit of coaching recruitment by Melbourne City. They didn't have, like, Neil Young departed before last season, and that looked like it had some effect on Tom Glover. So it looks like this could be a real benefit to Tom Glover moving forward, given, he was the Ollie Roos first choice goalkeeper throughout the Tokyo cycle, and he did at a few times was getting some Socceroos buzz before last season happened. So there is latent potential. He was on the books of Spurs at one point. So there is latent potential there. So, and it's not like goalkeepers don't have extraordinarily long primes that they can call upon. So going to be interesting to see what he does moving forward. But one other thing I did want to touch on this game was the crowd. First game of the season, grand final rematch, 2 local rivals, and the official crowd, checking on ozstadiums.com, was 7,501. Not good. However, my takeaway from this is, at this point, I wouldn't be expecting much more at this point, coming from this low baseline. So my biggest takeaway, my biggest new takeaway, I'll say, obviously it's a bad crowd and it's disappointing. And one of the things that, was blown away in the controversy of the Australia Cup final last week was the problem that newer A-Leagues clubs have had in winning hearts and minds and bringing large fan bases in. But Melbourne City really desperately need, like, a stadium in the southeast of Melbourne to play in, a small boutique ground to play in. 30,000 seat Amy Park it's just dragging them down because, I mean, you look at it at this point, they've been the best team in the league for 3 years, packed full of Socceroos. I mean, I know we're not talking about like they don't have marquee talent. They're packed full of Socceroos, you know, which should be plenty marquee enough. At this point, I just think it is what it is with their crowds. And in that case, you've got to look at the stadium situation or something to create a better atmosphere because, you know, we see it around the world. 7,500 people in a 10,000 seat stadium, 12,000 seat stadium is a much better spectacle than 7,500 people in a 30,000 seat stadium. So trying to be constructive with the crowd and think about something new. Obviously there's the long-standing issue we have with A-League clubs connecting with local populations, which we were reminded of last week, but also reminded of the absolute dearth of suitable boutique football stadiums in this country.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to Brisbane Roar, Macarthur.
Oh, we can make this point again with Brisbane Roar. Though. I mean, I look at the crowd. I mean, they were talking about how great it was to be back in Suncorp. The crowd was 8,521. Suncorp's 50,000 seat stadium.
Yeah.
The only other suitable boutique stadium, like suitable, it was Dolphin Stadium, which is in Redcliffe, which is ages away and prohibitive for them. So there we go. Brisbane, another city where we desperately need a proper boutique rectangular stadium to create a bit of atmosphere.
So just looking at the Channel 10 or Paramount Plus graphic that has the 0-0, I'm going to call from now on nil-all's Duolingo because it looks like the Duolingo bird. All right, it's got the little 0-0. It's blue. It's got the red eye.
This has already been a meme. You might notice it's a penguin.
I think it's the Duolingo bird, and I think
it's a Duolingo bird as well.
Shout out Debano. And also, here's what I'd say. Man, sponsorship, all right? You want to run in-game ads. While it's nil-all, and by the way, a few of those games are nil-all for a long time, stick a Duolingo logo right there. Bang, there you go. APL, I've just made you another $1 million. You know, you let me know.
So what you're saying is when it's 0-0, just have the Duolingo app as basically the scoreboard, like the logo for it, and then it changes to the actual scoreboard when there's a goal.
Let's go even further. Let's put a few phrases down the bottom of the page so we learn languages while these games are nil. Let me tell you something. Western Sydney v Perth needed something to happen on that screen because I was unbelievably bored. But we're going to talk about that later. Callum has just asked in the comments, have they spoken about the VAC yet? We're doing in chronological order. So we will get to the
after this game.
And we won't spend too much time on it. But Debana, your kind of initial reaction to Brisbane Roar 0, Macarthur 0.
Brisbane looked good at the start. They were very progressive. They were trying to play through the lines. I liked what I saw in the stage. Yeah, Carlo Amiento was very good. I mean, Warren Moon going back to a back three, something that, you know, he had a bit more success with 2 seasons ago when they last made finals. Amiento as a left wing back is an interesting move, but hey, it actually looked like it worked okay. Charlie Austin had some nice moments.
Amiento's always been more of a get down the byline and cross it in type of player than a cut inside. So he's suited for wingback.
Absolutely. And he actually looked quite good. I mean, he was out all last season with that ACL injury, but the season before that at Perth, I mean, he had some very decent showings. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes going forward. But Macarthur built their way into the game and really they should have won. Like Anthony Carter had 2 great opportunities, especially that chance in the first half. Fizzed across the face, like you got to put those away, son. Like, I mean, those sort of moments right there just sort of summed up the game. It was a game of near misses and not much else. It wasn't really the most exciting game that you'll ever see. But I mean, to take out of it, there wasn't really a hell of a lot other than the back three might be something to keep an eye on for Brisbane Roar going forward. But for Macarthur, I mean, some of that box office sort of, excitement that we had in the Australia Cup kind of rubbed off against a better opposition. Arzani wasn't great. I mean, as much as we all been singing his praises, wasn't his best game. Al Hassan Toure wasn't able to get into the game as much. It just wasn't the best game for them in all facets. So we'll see what happens next week when obviously Brisbane plays City, much better opposition, going to be another tough game for them. And for Macarthur, I mean, who have Macarthur got next week? It shows to show I've just had a bit of a blank. Adelaide United at home. So see if things turn around in that game. But yeah, not too much to write home about coming out of Suncorp Stadium.
Well, I'm going to be very interested to see what sort of Brisbane look we actually get against Melbourne City, because Warren Moon has demonstrated that he will adjust depending upon the opponent with different formations and different looks. And I think the real emphasis on width that he had against Macarthur, it's going to be interesting to see if that emphasis on width is something that stands throughout the rest of the league, or this was something that was really teed in on against Macarthur. Because you look at it, both Arzani and Toure, who are operating as the wingers for Macarthur, they were a bit lacking at times with their defensive efforts, with the wing backs, Hingett and Armiento bombing up the touchlines. They weren't as getting back as quickly or as often as they could. I remember there was one time when Hingett was just driving into the box and Arzani just sort of stopped and was watching him run on. So that was an area that Brisbane were really able to exploit, and just sort of broke down at the ends there because it was too much cross spam. They were just lacking a bit of talent and a bit of, well, not talent, a bit of incisiveness, and just an ability to do something other than just spam crosses. But the build-up play, sort of, it looked like that had been keyed in against Macarthur. And I think another problem that Macarthur had, obviously, I think Lockie Rose should be starting over Anthony Carter in that system. I think we saw what it could do in the Cup. I think it would work better at this point. I can see what Carter brings. You sort of want him as the tall target man up there. You've got a lot of your talented players, and he can sort of knock the ball down and hold the play up and that sort of stuff. I think I'd like to see Lockie Rose get a start against Adelaide. And the other thing, the biggest issue for me, for Macarthur in this game, was the disconnect that existed between their defensive third and their attacking third. That play through the midfield, it just wasn't there. They went with Jerry Skatanis and Daniel Silva there as that midfield pairing, and I don't think it worked very well. It was like they weren't showing, like they could have shown for the ball a little better when they were trying to play out from the back. It just didn't. It felt like the attack and the defense were operating on two different islands. It didn't feel like they were just weaved interconnectedly. And that was one thing that I put this in my season preview about Macarthur. One of my concerns was, how are they going to be a functional side in possession, or is their game plan just going to rely on getting the ball to one of their really talented attackers and having them do something? Didn't really function in possession in this game. Now, obviously, it's round one. Admittedly, they had the cup round, but round one, you can't extrapolate anything. I'm going to keep saying that throughout the show, but that's something that I had my eye on in this game.
Yeah, look, yeah, I think the team obviously looks better last week in the cup final, and a lot of people saying, "Oh, well, that was against Sydney United. Sydney United knocked out Brisbane Roar." So, a little bit respect for Sydney United. But Lockie Rose does stretch the line better than Anthony Carter. I don't know what Anthony Carter gives you. I haven't seen enough of his game, but I don't know what he gives you that is such an advantage over Lockie Rose. Maybe it was a fitness issue or whatever. The same thing kind of with. I mean, I don't mind Skatatis, but yeah, it wasn't his best game, and I'm a kind of a bit. When I first saw the lineup, I quite liked it, but they did look better with Kieran Backus playing there last week. So we should see if he gets back in the lineup for round two. We had a comment come in from Angelo Tyro. Tilio and Arzani playing their way out of World Cup calculations disappointingly. Look, I'll admit it wasn't Arzani's best game, but I also don't think it was a terribly poor game. There were flashes where we saw him absolutely rip players, go past players with these, which is what you want. And if you compare him to, so Tilio hasn't started a game and had not played well when he's come on. Quoll and Cummings, who are also kind of competing for these spots, at least in our heads, at least that's our understanding. These are the kind of ones being decided from. They didn't even play. So I actually think Arzani is a step closer than he was, maybe 2 weeks ago.
I wouldn't say he's a step closer, but he didn't take a step back.
Yeah, okay. Maybe that's right.
And I don't think it's fair to say Tilio's played his way out of World Cup calculations. I mean, it's out of his control if he's not getting minutes. Like, it's not his fault. And in those 17 minutes, I mean, he came very close to scoring, probably should have scored as well. But, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a huge step back in what Tilio did when he was on the field. I just think this is completely out of his control right now. This is up to the coach playing him. And I'm sure in my moment when my computer was rebooting, you guys spoke about it. But I mean, that's not going to change based on, him just being a Socceroo. Like, that's up to Patrick Kisnorbo, seeing him as someone that he actually wants to start and how he fits in the system right now. And obviously, he'd prefer to go with Andrew Naboo on the wing.
I wouldn't say it's completely up to, like, in the sense, I got a sense from Patrick Kisnorbo that maybe, like, this is just me hypothesizing, I'm guessing, but Kisnorbo maybe wanted to see something more in training or something. So there are ways that you can demand, any player can demand playing time. It's ripping shit up at training, ripping shit up when you come on. So it's not like Tilio. I agree with the broader sense of your point, Debano, but at the same time, Tilio can do things to help his case. He's not a babe in the woods.
Oh no, he's not completely inept, but I'm just saying, like, you can train the house down, but at the end of the day, if your coach still wants to go with a tried and tested formula on game day, that's unfortunately, if something's working and he thinks it's working and he's stuck with this front three for quite some time, I can see him sticking with this. And, with games not coming thick and fast this time around heading into the World Cup with shorter turnarounds, I don't see Kisnorbo changing it too much. But, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens over the next few weeks.
I was surprised, actually, a lot of the players who were involved in the Socceroos, who are A-League based, were on the bench. So I know the game didn't get played, but the Mariners, Qual and Cummings was on the bench. So I don't know if the coaches were, frustrated that they didn't get to work with these players, a few weeks ago when they're in camp. I think that's pretty stupid if that is the reason. But, obviously not being there. Two things I want to just quickly ask you guys about Brisbane before we move on. Akbari not starting, and do we think he's going to be spending the season kind of coming off the bench, or is that just first round, whatever? Maybe he's not totally up to speed, but that was a surprise to me. And two, how do you guys think Charlie Austin is going to go this season? Because there were little moments where you kind of thought, oh, here we go, there could be a goal here, especially that cross from Armiento in the first half. But I guess I'm worried for a player who's so reliant on service, how much service is he really going to get with his team? And then is he going to have one of these seasons where he's only scores less than 10 goals or something because he's not getting that service?
To Joey's point earlier about Warren Moon changing things depending on opposition, I think Akbari is certainly still right in the reckoning to see minutes. I think it just depends on, what sort of system they're going with and who they're playing. I mean, he went a lot more defensive in terms of his spine by playing Kai Truan and Jay O'Shea as two midfielders. But against some other opposition, maybe he'd want to play O'Shea and Akbari together. So I wouldn't say he's completely sort of left in the wilderness. I think we've got to give it a few more weeks, and I think we'll see how those different variations stack up against different opposition. And just on short with Charlie Austin, I think he played all right. I don't think he played poorly. I think, as mentioned, he just didn't get as much service. And Again, I think it's way too early to sort of say definitively, yep, he's going to be, a flop, or yep, he's going to absolutely tear this league apart. I still think he's going to score a lot of goals. I think just by weight, he's going to be the guy that gets on the end of those half chances. He's going to put himself in those areas. He's probably going to be designated penalty taker as well. So I think this year, he's still going to bang him in, but to what level, I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Joey, you concur?
Yeah, I think the young player point, I think at this point, just the quickest way to ensure you'll start on the bench is to just be in my boy stable as a young player. It seems like across the opening week of the season, all of them were named on the bench rather than starting. It's a case of wait and see. I think it's round one. I don't want to make too many hot takes just in round one.
All right. Really quick one on Central Coast Mariners and Newcastle Jets. Nil, La Nina 1. Look, disappointing to not see this game. I think we would have been treated to a good game. They're very sad for all the fans who went out there, braved the rain. There's a big away contingent from Newcastle, which I saw on social media. Matt Simon, gave a real nice speech and to the crowd, and look, he is not the most graceful player to have touched the league, but he is someone. He's a legend of the Mariners. He has battled his way for that team year after year, and from all accounts, he's a really good guy off the pitch as well. So it was sad that he didn't get kind of the nice send off, but he did do a nice speech, and I think people should go check that out. But yeah, I guess we're hopeful to see this game happen once it does get rescheduled.
I'm very interested to see when it will happen, because obviously two of the major talking points, Garang Kuhl and Jason Cummings. Garang looks like he's going away with the under-20s. So, and then he's leaving in Newcastle. So it might not be as relevant for him because he's going to, well, it's bad for him in the sense that he's missed one of the few A-League men games he was actually going to play before the World Cup was announced. For Jason Cummings, though, it's going to be very interesting. If they reorganize the game in the next 6 weeks, ostensibly he hasn't missed out on an opportunity to impress Graham Arnold, particularly if they organise to play the game midweek or something, because then Graham Arnold's undivided attention will be on the game, because what else is he going to watch? However, on the flip side, if they have to reorganise this for later in the season, all of a sudden Cummings' goal of 6 goals, 6 games is now 5 goals in 5 games. And perhaps even worse for him, Jamie McLaren scored for Melbourne City. And I don't think they're competing for a spot, but maybe Jamie McLaren scoring and is having Graham Arnold think, I don't need 4 centre forwards. I can just go with Taggart, Duke and McLaren. Because Duke's season is ending soon as well. So it's not like he's not going to shit the bed in his domestic season. And it's safe to say, unless he gets injured in like his last few games, he'll go. So that's going to be very interesting to see. When does that game get reorganized? Does Cummings get his 6 games before the World Cup? And when do we get to see? And does Arthur Papas come to his senses for my fantasy team and start Reno Piscopo in the rematch?
Just on that, I think it would be a massive blessing in disguise if this game does get played before the end of this 6-game break, only because, I mean, Jason Cummings wasn't even starting the game, which was quite an interesting decision from Nick Montgomery to not go with Cummings. You would have thought Cummings would have been a nailed-on starter for this sort of game, but instead went with, I think it was Ayongo.
Shoulder injury.
Shoulder injury. Okay.
He had a bit of a shoulder injury.
Yeah, so he went with Ayongo and Silvera as the front two, but, should he be all right to play in the rescheduled game? Should that be the next 6 weeks? It might actually work okay for him. Yeah, it'd be really disappointing if both him and Qual lost those 90 minutes due to, again, circumstances completely out of their control. I don't know, there's some bad juju in the air, guys, in regards to, chances for the fringe Socceroos players to really push their case and things that are just not going in their favour in this first week of the A-League season. At least the ones that were sort of in that New Zealand squad or the next level down. There are a couple that, furthered their case in other games, but the ones that we were sort of speaking about specifically out of that Australia, New Zealand lot of games, with guys like Tilio, Qual, Cummings, they have had just a horror week. But it'll be, hopefully they can get this game off soon and this isn't left too late in the piece to play. But yeah, interesting decision as well, as you mentioned, Joey, that Reno Piscopo also wasn't starting in this game. And I think it looked like they were going to go with I'm trying to say this correctly. Dametzlia, the other Becker, and Trent Bahaja as wingers with Costa Grosas playing as a 10. So I do wonder, is that something that we'll see Arthur Papas stick with for next week, or is that just a one-off for this game? And maybe Piscopo wasn't 100% fit. We don't know. So, yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens next week.
All right, let's move on to the Big Blue, which of course took place in the new Allianz Stadium. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go.
No ticker.
No. I feel very bad about it. It looked very cool on TV. Look, it was like, if you weren't in Sydney, I cannot kind of convey to you how shit the weather is. And I'm actually surprised they got the crowd.
Sunny.
Like, yeah, it's okay now, but it was horrific last night. Like, just torrential rain.
I know.
And actually, it was interesting to hear what I guess was a little bit disappointing was that I was under the impression that basically the whole thing was covered. And from the description by a lot of fans was they're saying the first, 10, 15 rows is not covered, which, is kind of massively frustrating. I don't understand why you haven't designed a modern stadium in 2022 to have covered everything, especially in a city like Sydney, which, you know, Sydney has great weather, but when it rains, it pours. Like, it comes down heavy. So, you know, well done to all the fans who braved the weather and turned up. And you know, for most of the part, I know there were some dickheads in the Cove, but for most of the part, really good atmosphere. But what did you guys think kind of on the field? What was your big takeaway? I know, Joey, you wrote for ESPN about it. What did you take out of the match?
Yeah, I'll get to the incident with the bottles in a bit, but on the game, it was an entertaining game. It was a fun game. I think the weather conditions certainly worked against both sides being able to produce as fluid a football as they would have liked, giving them the benefit of the doubt on that front, even though I did think we saw some trends there. Obviously, I think Melbourne Victory, as they demonstrated last night, again, is going to be a side that is going to be very devastating in transition, the way that they can get out quickly and the talent that they have assembled. Biggest things for me, well, in terms of potential long-term takeaways beyond the game itself, the injury to Alex Wilkinson, I think, was a major impact on the game. We saw Steve Corica responds by bringing on Paolo Retre as a wingback.
What did you make of that?
I thought it was sus.
What does it say to Gerd, who is a centre back by trade, did well in the FA Cup?
Well, it probably says the same thing to him as Popovic opting to start Broxham over Timotheu did to Timotheu. And I don't think it worked. We saw in the second, times in the second half, but Sydney didn't look defensively sound when Victory was able to get out and break into the second half. There were problems, with their transition defense in the midfield, and against the side with Victory's quality, that's going to get punished. Now, we saw the ramifications, some of the ramifications that for one game with Wilkinson being out. The question is now, when Wilkinson potentially, Steve Corica said in the aftermath, it was a groin injury. Now, groins can take 2 or 3, 4 weeks at the best of times. Alex Wilkinson's not a spring chicken. So that could be something very much that you have to keep an eye on, soft tissue injuries like that, how long he's going to be in the sidelines. And I know they'll probably get Rodwell back at some point soon, but if your defensive fortitude is relying on Rodwell staying fit over the length of a season, even a short season like the A-League men, you're in a spot of bother, I think, because unfortunately the man has never been able to stay fit for a full season. As maybe once or twice early in his career, but I think in general, his career has been defined by time on the sidelines and injuries. So that's going to be tricky. And the same thing counts for Melbourne Victory. Sporanovic wasn't past fit to play. He wasn't dropped, as the foreign editors on my ESPN story changed my copy to read. He wasn't past fit to play. And in his stead, we saw Timotheu not make the starting lineup, and instead it was Broxham and Miranda. Broxham was caught out for Robert Mack's goal. He did rebound, made some important tackles in the end.
Nice
DJ
goal,
Brox, DJ Brox, he's going to do that. He's going to throw himself about and he'll make tackles. But we saw the challenges you're going to have with DJ Broxley on that first goal. Is it a situation wherein you know what Sporanovic is? He's going to have to be managed. He's going to miss games. That's why you signed BJ Hamill last season. Is there defensive depth if DJ Broxley starting over Timotheu in week 1 going to be something that can hold up over the course of an entire season?
So we got a comment coming in from Alan Riley who says DJ Brox is vastly better than Timotheo. # just saying. Debano, agree or disagree?
Well, I mean, Timotheo didn't necessarily, with no disrespect, didn't endear himself in that potential from the game I saw, especially against Manchester United. Didn't endear himself particularly well with that own goal. And I mean, other than that, I mean, you look at their defensive depth. There's young Matt Bozanovsky who comes back from loan from Wellington. He's not really near it by the looks of it right now. They tried Edmund Lepanchu against Manchester United. He also scored an own goal in that game as well. So the depth in centre back is just it's not the same as last year because, as Joey mentioned, BJ Hamill played a very important role last year in just filling in whenever Spirit couldn't, because we know that Matt Sporanovic will probably, as Angelo put it, I mean, he played less than 10 games. I think we might see him play every second week, might see him play every third, because they're going to have to be conservative with him, making sure he's 100%. But it's going to be an interesting case study throughout the season to see if they stick with this, whether they might look to bring someone in January as well, and sort of let it play out until then, and then see what they can do then, and maybe bring a reinforcement in. But just on, I mean, the game itself, it was a fun game. It was a fun game. Like, it was not in the sense that, like, it wasn't maybe the football purist fun game, but there were a lot of goals. There was a lot of transition. There were a lot of cool individual moments. I mean, got to give a shout out to Chris Economides, who came off the bench and, start with talk about fantasy. A lot of fantasy owners' hearts in mouth for a second when he was named on the bench, but he came on and had a brilliant second half, scored the goal, got the assist then for Josh Brillante at the end, showed a lot of energy up and down that left-hand side, and really creates a massive conundrum now for Tony Popovic going forward. I mean, where are you going from here? Is he going with, Economides on the left-hand side over Ben Falami? I thought Ben Falami actually played a good game for the first hour. I thought he was actually quite energetic. So there is a goal as well. Yeah. There is a big, big conundrum here. And, it's not a bad problem to have at all if you're Tony Popovic. He's blessed with riches in that attacking third, because D'Agostino scored. Nani showed a lot in those little few moments, like that beautiful ball into Economides. And, I mean, we know Jake Brimmer's going to keep starting as a 10. So he's got those 3 positions for 4 players. So let's sort of see how that plays out, because there was someone, I want to find the comment again, saying, Economides potentially putting himself into Socceroos' frame. I think if he plays well enough, he could be, maybe in the frame, but I think it might be a little bit too late for him. And I think the fact that he's not starting is really going to work against him. And I don't think he's been called up in quite some time now as well, at least I think not since last year. So it might be a bit too late for him for this World Cup, but maybe for the Asian Cup in particular might be something of a more sort of, feasible goal. But I think, he certainly put himself in there to maybe start against the Wanderers next week. So it'll be interesting to see what Popovic does. But nonetheless, I think Victory can take a lot out of that from their attacking work in transition. They'll devastating. They were very, very good.
I wouldn't rule Economides out from the Socceroos mix too early. I mean, he got called in. The reason he had some of the problems he had last season because he spent a month in quarantine before the commencement of the campaign because he was getting called into the Socceroos. And I mean, if Garen Kuol can get buzz and get a call up because he comes off the bench and provides goals and assists, Economides a goal and an assist off the bench last night. So, and he's got international form, and Arnie's called him in the past. So I wouldn't rule that out. But 2 more points before we bring in Josh Parrish to get his thoughts on the game, and then the Joeys and Shepparton. One serious point and one not serious point. We got comment from Angelo Tyro in the comments. Call for Ansel, help. Normally, I thought you reached for Ansel before the accident rather than after the accident. But Sydney FC itself, it was interesting to watch Sydney FC's new system, the 4-3-3, with the play of the wingers. So in attack, good stuff and bad stuff. They had more of the ball. They won the territory battle. They did some good things. But at the same time, I didn't think their shot quality was all that high. There was a lot of cutting in and shots from around the edge of the box, from angles, which Victories was able to get defenders in front of, and Izzo was generally able to cover. He had one that almost went underneath him. How much of that was because of the situation and with the wet weather and all that, we don't know. And it was also notable that I noted in my stats, when I was going over the stats last night, Adam Lafondra, I think, only had around 10 touches and didn't have a single shot in the 70-odd minutes that he was on the park.
9 touches, Joey.
Hey?
9 touches. So didn't even
reach 9. Adam Lafondra. So, yeah, Adam Lafondra had 9 touches and he didn't have a shot. So, obviously, the wingers, Joe Lolly and Robert Mack, a lot of joy, but it's round 1. So, I'm not going to raise the alarm bells just yet. They've got to get used to the system. But when you're leaving your best midfielder on the bench, your star number 9 is having 9 touches and not getting a shot, there are areas certainly of improvement. Encouraging signs, but also a series of improvement. I'm not trying to shit on it, But it's just something to keep an eye on, I think. But I think we should probably bring in
just one second. One second before we bring on Josh. I would also like to make a point on this match, if you don't mind. I know you like to give 8-minute answers and then cut it off, but
I'm surprised you watched the match, Nick Stoll.
Of course, I watched the match. I watch all the matches. Look, what I say is that they got rid of Ninkovic, or whatever. Ninkovic didn't accept their offer of the contract. He was their most creative player. Their second most creative player, this is statistically speaking, it's not my bias speaking, was Max Burgess, creating most chances and putting things. So when you lose your most creative player, and then you leave your second most creative player on the bench until the 73rd minute, and on top of that, you're playing a new system. Yeah, you're going to get, I think their expected goal was 1.02 from 13 shots or something. Your Lafondra is not going to get the ball. Now, I don't know. I didn't understand the changes that he made and when he made them. I think Mac and Lolly, there's potential there for them to be quite good, but they're quite direct. I don't see them as players who are really going to, break down systems or even the ball progression. It doesn't seem like they're going to drop deep and help progress the ball up the field. Maybe potentially Lolly in the way he dribbles the ball, but I just think that midfield still has issues. Yazbek, I don't mind. Braddon is coming back from a year off, and you could see it. And then Caceres, has his moments, but for me is lacking. So we'll see what happens with that. But just also want to give a shout out to, everyone's talking about that Nani pass for the goal, but the ball from Stefan Nigra into Nani to allow him to do that. Amazing. So, and I actually thought Victory, they looked pretty good. I tipped them to in our season preview, which by the way, we got a lot of compliments for. And a lot of our predictions are already looking a bit shaky. But one thing that I'm quite happy with is my Melbourne Victory to be champions prediction. I thought they looked good. I liked what I saw from Victory last season. It's still poppable. It's still going to be restrictive to say the least. But from what I saw,
in transition. But
but from what I saw is this is going to be successful. This is what I see. And also for the Victory fans, I loved, the fact that they were rubbing Sydney FC's nose and the fact that the last ever game played in that old stadium, they won. And the first ever game, they won as well. Like that to me is exactly what you should be doing as a Victory fan. So that's what I wanted to say on the match. Before we do go to Josh Parrish, and we do want to go to that soon, do we want to quickly talk about the bottle throwing and the pitch invasion that happened later on?
Can I just make one tiny point before Joey goes on the bottles, just about the bottles? Yeah. The whole point of it, with the fact that they were doing it, made no sense. In the sense we think about when you're not just the fact that it's a terrible look, and it is. They should never have done that. Stamp that crap out. Don't do it. Why? Like what? Like why? But in that point in the game, when your team's down by a goal with 2 minutes of stoppage time left, don't you want to get play restarted, not waste time? Idiots. Don't you want to try and force a turnover and maybe create one more chance at goal to maybe pinch a point? Do you not have the faith to maybe go, hey, let's just hold it. Let Izzo take his goal kick. He's already going to waste time. He's going to now waste even more time. And he was even having a bit of S-housery by, I think he almost took a drink. Like he actually started opening up one of the bottles. Seriously, it just made no sense. And
the Cove did make that point.
Yeah,
Cove did make that point. They released a statement, and Tony Spagona says in the comments, great statement by the Cove. We don't have time to read the whole thing.
All right. Yeah,
but they did make the point that they didn't endorse this. They criticized it, and it is stupid.
It was good to see the Cove come out and making that statement. Also, it was stupid. It's disgraceful behavior. I'm not going to compare their behavior to anything else. All right. I'm just going to treat their behavior for it. It was stupid. It's not what this game. It was dangerous. It's not what this game needs. I mean, obviously, Izzo treated it with a bit of fun, posted on his Instagram about throw a beer next time. But you can't be throwing stuff at people at work. This is football players' workplace. You can't go to somebody's workplace and start throwing stuff at them. It's if that hits somebody and injures them, it's assault. It's terrible behavior. It needs to get stamped out. And I guess I'm even more wound up because I've seen a tweet today from, I apologize, I don't know his full name, but Roscoe. He's a well-known Sydney FC fan. He volunteers for the club. He helps marshal the ball kids on the sidelines. A ball kid was hit by a bottle. All right, Roscoe Sweet, he's barely 12 years old and giving up some time to help the club. The kid, fortunately, the kid wasn't injured. But so a young kid, a 12-year-old kid, ball kid, was hit by a bottle. What are you doing? You morons. Don't do that shit. And it was great to see the Cove come out with that statement at the same time, but I would like to see Sydney come out and acknowledge this and say something as well, say they're investigating it, and certainly if they can at least identify the Wazzik that threw the bottle that hit the kid and ban them, because it's technically like Football Australia's code of conduct, as we saw with Sydney United show cause notice and Melbourne Victory show cause notice during the Cavallo incident. It is the clubs that are held responsible for these sort of things. So yeah, it's great that the Cove has come out and made a statement, but it is Sydney FC's responsibility. So they'll need to investigate and they'll need to come out and say something on this. And I mean, if we're going to stamp out bad crowd behaviour, we have to stamp it out and we have to be serious with this stuff. It's not on. It was stupid.
All right. Well, speaking of not stupid, that's the best way I could transition from that. Josh Parrish, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's give Josh his dues, okay? The guy commentates 3 national team games. What happens? We win all 3 games, all right? We concede 1 goal. We score 36 or something, all right? So let's just all pay our respects to the most successful commentator in Australian football history, unless one person commentated Australia 31, American Smile Nil, and then never commentated again. I will withdraw my statement. But otherwise, Josh, how does it feel to be the most successful commentator in Australian football history?
Speaking of not stupid, that's quite an intro.
Is that Highway to the Danger Zone in the background?
Yeah, there's a little bit of music being played here before the big match of the day, which is, of course, Cambodia versus the Northern Mariana Islands. Will Mariana score a goal?
Come on, Mariana. Let's go to Mariana.
You know, I've been impartial the whole tournament, but for this one, I've got my colours nailed to the mast. Yeah, it was a good performance by the Joeys. They could have made it more comfortable for themselves than they did. Early penalty won by Nesta Irankunda. I have confirmed that he prefers to go by Nesta and not Nestori, which took 3 games for me to get that piece of information, but we got there. Fantastic run, beat 3 Chinese defenders, fouled for the penalties, steps up to take it himself, puts it straight down the middle, backflips, crowd interruptions. And it was a decent turnout today. It was nearly 1,200 people in Shepparton who came to watch this, and there was a good split of Australian fans and Chinese fans. So there was a bit of chanting going backwards and forwards and atmosphere that developed over the course of the game. China were super rattled after conceding early. Australia really on top. Max Haitley, the number 9 for the Wanderers, missed a really gilt-edged chance from close range. It was saved too close to the keeper. Stoll is vibing to the background music. But
is that Vanilla Ice in the background?
I don't know. It's like the official AFC playlist that they do for like every game.
It sounds like Ice Baby at the moment.
I don't know. I don't know what
if it's commercial music, we might not be able to run it on the pods.
All right. Well, I'll try and keep talking over the top of it then. But yeah, Max Haitley had a great chance. Then Australia won another penalty, sort of clumsy handball from a Chinese defender. And Haitley stepped up to take it. And he did a bit of a John Terry impersonation, lost his standing foot, put the ball wide. And then maybe a minute later, and I'm sure his head's still elsewhere from missing the penalty, but he was tasked with marking China's key striker off corners. And although it wasn't dealt with at the front post and the corner was allowed to bounce inside the 6-yard box, which is like every Sunday league coach's nightmare, Max Haitley lost his man and Wang Yudong equalised. And Brad Maloney had to make a really tough call and substitute Haitley after 30 minutes, which is obviously like, it's a brutal thing for a teenage player to go through that and have to come off. But, you know, the team comes first and they brought on Mitch Glasson, who probably would have started today if not for like a slight injury knock that he picked up on Friday. He recovered in time to make the bench and they brought him on early. 1-1 at half time. China their mentality completely changed when they equalised. Like it's so obvious, especially in youth football, just how psychological a game football really is, because it just has these massive momentum swings based on what's happening. And obviously, it's a maturity thing, but it completely restored China's belief for the second half. And then early in the second half, China gets a straight red card, and it completely conditions the rest of the match. It was a quite controversial incident. I've looked at several replays. I still can't decide whether it was a straight red card or not. What happened was it was basically just like a coming together on the side of the pitch right in front of the fourth official, and it was the fourth official who actually reported it. But the Chinese player just raised his foot slightly as Nesta Irankunda slid in, and he ended up kicking him in the face. So it was kind of a scary moment because I'm like, oh, did he get in his eye? He was scratching his face. He was obviously in pain. And after some discussion, the straight red card came out for the Chinese wingback. And there was a little bit of mistaken identity, including on my call and on the ground announcing as well. But eventually we identified, because the player leading the protest was not actually the player who made the challenge. But China down to 10, and they needed a win to qualify. It was a really difficult position for them at 1-1. They had to sit back behind the ball, and Australia just had so much time on the board to just knock it around. And the Joe's coach, you could hear him from up on the scaffold. He was just yelling, keep the ball, keep the ball, keep the ball, and just slowly work their way into goal-scoring positions. And eventually they did. Irankunda scored his second with a lovely take inside the box and sort of shifted it away from a defender and shot a cross goal with his left. And then he ended up teeing up the third, another solo run, cuts it back to the edge of the box for Miguel De Pizio, who was another player who really impressed this tournament. Great finish first time. And Australia 3-1 winners, and the celebrations after the final whistle were something to behold. But China should still go through to the tournament, depending on some other results. But they're expected to qualify as one of the best second-place teams. So they'll have a lower seeding, but they should be at the tournament, the AFC Asian Cup next year as well.
So, Josh, just one question. You've been out in Shepparton for a few days now. I think it's good to see, football in regional Australia. But the question has come in, how much sombrero did Josh eat in Shepp? Is that the best food to eat in Shepparton?
It's a chain. Of course, I sampled the local cuisine. I didn't go for the big chains.
Ooh, what did you eat?
Zero. I went to an institution, Casablanca Pizza and Pasta. That was great. Really like that.
Morocco, known for its pizza and pasta.
It's an Italian enclave, I think. No, it's Spanish. But
my skin is crawling.
No, it was one of those places that you can tell hasn't changed in 30 to 40 years, and it's still probably the same family running it. So that was great. I also went to a place called, I think it was Lemon Tree Cafe, and it had, I posted the picture in the group chat, Nick, massive brekkie burger, which was served with a stack of onion rings on a skewer on top. That was intense.
Top. So I guess I wanted to know, has the town of Shepparton really embraced this tournament? And it is going to regional Australia, I guess, is a decision made by those in charge. How do you think that's gone down?
I think it's gone down pretty well. You can see how it's built over the course of the tournament. Like Wednesday night, terrible weather against Northern Mariana Islands, and there wasn't really anyone here. Friday night against Cambodia, a more important match. Still, the weather wasn't great, but we got a decent turnout for that. And then a lovely sunny Sunday against really strong opposition and the crucial showdown for top place in the group, and we got nearly 1,200 people here. So that was excellent, and I think it's built over the course of it, the publicity and the great coverage in the local paper as well, full double page spreads and stuff, which you wouldn't get if you staged it in a metropolitan area. So I think it's gone down well, and I know Goulburn Valley Suns, who this is kind of their home facility, have already benefited from it. They've already had people who have heard about the tournament or have come to games and seen what's been happening, inquiring about junior registration and their MPL program and this, that, and the other. So there's been a lot of benefits, and I think it's been a real success.
Josh, obviously Irankunda has already featured in the A-League men competition, and based upon his form in this tournament, likely will get some minutes pretty soonish once he returns to the Reds. Have you seen, and he got his first minutes as a 15-year-old, have you seen any players there throughout these three games that you think are maybe, smokies or warrant minutes at A-League men level this season?
This season, I'd probably say no. I think Miguel De Pizio shows a level of assurance on the ball that, I think he's going to be a good pro. But whether Central Coast Mariners call upon him, given he's a 16-year-old, Iran Kunda is a marvel, not just because he's so talented, but also because he's kind of an early bloomer. And most players that make the breakthrough at that age are, just physically. So he's up to playing against men. A lot of these guys probably aren't just yet, but I think De Pizio is showing a lot of promise. The other players I'd point to, I suppose, as standouts for Australia in the tournament, Andriano Labib of Perth Glory, who's a kind of towering centre half. I think he's got it all. I think he's got great composure on the ball as well, and shown a lot across all three games. And I also think Mitch Glasson of Sydney FC, no way he's playing this season. There's no way, because it's Sydney FC, and it's hard enough for someone like Jaden Kaczarski to get in the team, let alone a 16-year-old. But into the future, I just think he's got the kind of work rate and engine that A-League coaches will really appreciate. So there's a few prospects for the future, but I wouldn't say Iran Kunda. I would say Iran Kunda is probably going to be the only player that we see in the A-League this year.
So when you say into the future, you mean into the future when he leaves Sydney and signs with Western Sydney or someone else?
Mariners.
Yeah, probably.
Mariners will pick him up.
And it's interesting. A couple of the players, because there was a lot of Mariners players in the tournament, and I was like, wow, the Mariners are doing well. A few of those are just players who've left Wanderers really recently, including Miguel De Pizio. So I think they've seen that, they've seen the Garang Kuol success story and all these young players getting first-team minutes at the Mariners, and maybe the path forward at the Wanderers isn't as obvious. But when he left, De Pizio was seen as a big loss to the Wanderers Academy.
Torres makes the point via YouTube, Josh going and liking Casablanca sounds like the start of a beautiful friendship. Shout out if you've actually seen the movie. I watched it for the first time 2 months ago. It's pretty good. Joseph,
all the gin joints and all the Shepp.
Joseph,
just play it again, Stoll.
See, everyone's seen the movie. Everyone's got the hits. Joseph says via YouTube, Shepparton is more known for its STIs. Now, Joseph, I don't think you understand how acronyms work, because then you've said Stone Fruit Recognition Index.
SRIs, mate.
SRI, maybe. I don't know. It's a good attempt at a joke, but you got to try again. But Josh, just before you go, do you want to tell us the story of kind of, and it went a bit viral actually, of the Northern Mariana, the coach, and he broke down in the press conference.
Yeah, first time I've made a coach cry. I wasn't expecting that.
Gosh, you arsehole. What did you say?
I felt awful. That was, when he started getting emotional, I think he was emotional going into it, let's be honest. I don't think it was my question. But the reason, the question that prompted it was I was asking him about his goalkeeper, Vicente Jose Reyes. And he was substituted against Australia at about, 16, 17-0 midway through the second half. And we didn't know why, but apparently it was because he broke down crying during the match and they just needed to get him off. I asked him about Reyes' performance in the second game against China because he was magnificent. We were debating amongst ourselves, can a goalkeeper who concedes 11 goals still be player of the match? That was how good he was. He was just, you could hear him shouting from the next postcode. He was making save after save after save. He was just so pumped up and just absolutely brilliant. And they were under siege the entire game. But that performance against China was really magnificent. 11-0. The scoreline doesn't tell the full story because they played so well. And I asked Michiteru Mita about Reyes in the press conference, and that's when he started getting emotional because, obviously, it had been a really difficult night for Reyes against Australia, and he turned it around over the course of 2 days and responded in such incredible fashion. He showed such character, and I think that was really special. And Mita is obviously very close with his players and is a bit of a father figure, and all the social media jokes that people were making at their expense, they saw all that. They saw all the Facebook comments saying, what's the point in them being here? It's not a competitive game. Who gets, they shouldn't get to come to the tournament. They should have a pre-qualifying, whatever. And that affected them, but they used it, I guess, as fuel for the second game. And honestly, Northern Mariana Islands, they've only been competing for 3 years, maybe? It's one of the first major tournament qualification things they've been a part of, because they only got accepted to the AFC in, I think, 2019. They're still not recognised by FIFA because they're a US territory. So to actually start participating in these major qualifying tournaments is absolutely integral to the growth of football in the country, because if they don't, like, there's nothing to aim for. There's no aspirational things that you can say to young players and say, look, if you make it, you can get to do this. So that's the point that he was making in the press, and I think it was well made.
Josh, just before you go, you're a valued member of this podcast, and we're only going to have you on for a short time because you were commentating. But just any thoughts on the opening weekend of the A-League that you want to share with us?
No thoughts other than I scored the highest out of our entire head-to-head fantasy league. So I think we know. I think we know who the expert is on this podcast. Debano, what happened? I slapped you, mate. 80 to 55.
Josh, I had Ben Garuccio as my captain by accident, man. All right,
negligent, lack of foresight.
Marathon, not a sprint. Okay, let's
exactly. Josh,
let's wait and see. All right,
you're getting a bit smummy. You're going to make Nick Debano cry like he did the Mariana coach. So we're going to have to let you go. But thank you so much for joining us, and well done on calling the Joeys to 3 successive wins. Australian football, you want more success, get Josh behind the mic. Get Joey behind the mic too, but get Josh behind the mic. And by the way, little point, Teo was commentating Matildas last night, and they won. We're going to get onto that soon. But TNC, if we're commentating, good things happen, my friend. Good things happen.
There you go. Football Loz, give me a call. I'll call the junior Matildas.
Hope might not be a strategy, but getting us to call games clearly is. So, thanks, fellas. Have a good show.
All right. See you, Josh. All right. Well, that was a lot of fun. We're going to move on to the A-League games that happened today. Let's be honest, not so much fun. Look, I'm going to rip in once we get to Wellington. Once we get into West Sydney Wanderers v Perth. But just firstly, Wellington v Adelaide United. Your boy Ben Halloran scoring the goal late. Joey, what were your thoughts on the match?
In terms of Adelaide United, pretty much this.
You can't keep getting away with it! He can't keep getting away with it! He won't.
He does. I think he has.
Adelaide United getting out of jail in the last minutes of games again. Oh. This game really, the red card in this game to Sass for Wellington really completely. From that point, I mean, I think the Knicks were already trying to do it. It was interesting. The very start of the game, emotional homecoming, first, home game back in New Zealand after, I know they had played a few games in New Zealand, but, this is the first game of their return to New Zealand. They're a proper Kiwi side again. You'd expect them to come out and ride a wave of momentum and be on top early, the Knicks. But it was Adelaide that were on top early and making all the run of things early. And then Sass gets the red card. And at that point, to their credit, the Knicks do it very well, but they sort of set up shop and try to control the game without the ball and be very sound defensively and hit on the counter, which they did. The Wayne train coming. But yeah, they just get found out at the end by, Adelaide United doing what Adelaide United does, scoring goals late. Comrade Halloran, with, one has to say, a very well taken shot, was very well placed. He set himself up, he found the right angle, and he slotted it through. But I can't bring myself to say that, despite them coming back and getting the point, that Adelaide played that well. I mean, they had 62% of the ball and ended up with an XG of 1.35 off 20 shots.
Against 10 men for what was it?
Against 10 men
minutes.
For like an hour, which shows you that high volume with that XG shows you the type of quality of shots that they were creating, especially when you consider that, Halloran's goal counts into that figure. I mean, there's just so much cross and inshallah. I think, Debano, you looked up the stat. How many crosses did Adelaide have in that game?
I'll actually credit Alan Riley for posting the stat up on Twitter, but it was 40 crosses with a success rate. Only 9 of them successful, so 23% of them were successful. Wellington had 8 crosses, 1 successful, so it goes to show the difference. I mean, obviously, as you mentioned, Adelaide a lot more of the ball, but yeah, 40 crosses.
Yeah, look, we'll read out some comments. Alan Riley says Halloran is so good, we'd be way worse without him. I don't know why we don't have plans for a deep block, given how often we play against them. 40 crosses says it all. Our Liga says A-League cross spam. Antonis Pagonis makes the point, very Ibisuki and Goodwin reliant. Craig Goodwin not starting was a big shock for, I think, a lot of fantasy owners.
Well, he's coming back from injury, so...
Well, that's what we're going to see more of, when Goodwin and Ibisuki come back. They're going to keep trying to cross the ball into Ibisuki because he is the, what's the word you described him, Joe? Easter Island statue?
Easter Island statue.
Yeah, he's just the big lad up top. So they're going to try and cross it into him. So I don't think it's going to change a hell of a lot when they are at full strength either. I mean, look, on Wellington's point of view, it's a point gained. It's very unlucky they weren't able to get all 3, but considering they went down to 10 men relatively early, I think they'd feel a bit hard done by, didn't get all 3, but the fact they got a point out of it, when you look at it in terms of the whole year and context and everything, it's actually not that bad. Steven Ugarkovic, I just got to say, brilliant first game for Wellington. No surprise there that he had a great game in the middle of the park and carried things in there. He was sensational. In regards to the red card, Sase had to go off, obviously, for the challenge, but he was a bit unlucky, I got to say, because he made the first movement when he went to try and win the ball, and then his back leg or his second leg sort of swept underneath him and he slipped and fell into the man. So obviously he had to go, but he was a bit unlucky in that sense. But look, you know what? End of the day, it's a point gain for Wellington. I'm sure that, it's not the worst thing considering they got that red card. But Adelaide, on the other hand, look, very lucky at the end of the day. A lot of questions, to go forward against when they play better opposition because, look, let's be real. Crossing inshallah is not going to work against every opposition. And, and we know that's going to keep happening, or at least, with Ibisuki up top and Goodwin coming in on that left-hand side. Whether that's really going to change, I don't see that happening at all.
Matthew Pappas via YouTube says Blackwood was disappointing. Our Liga says Viet, very one-dimensional coach. Antonis Bergonis missing a proper number 8. So yeah, look, not the greatest game, and not the greatest start. Look, Wellington, it's hard to judge them. They played 60 minutes with 10 men, but I didn't think they were great in the first 30 minutes from what I saw. And, we had Phil Roller come on the show and really kind of turn us around in the preseason preview. I think we all, as he pointed out, lazily put them 9th for the season. But Roller, mate, they're going to finish 9th. I'm telling you.
Nah.
Well, they play in yellow and black.
It's round 1. Oh, hey.
AFL references, so it's time to move on. But look, Western Sydney Wanderers 1, Perth Glory 0. Okay, here's what I'm going to say about this game. So, me and one of my best mates here in Sydney, Juan, we had real nice food. We had a really good pizza. Mate,
the spread Stoll.
We had the olives. Mate. We had the focaccia. We had really nice wine. All set up for a great Sunday. We're relaxing on the couch. All good. Within 45 minutes, these guys destroyed my Sunday. All right. These guys brought me down. Western Sydney Wanderers and Perth Glory. Shame on you. That first 45, you're ruining my Sunday. All right. It's actually, it was so bad that I was starting to think, okay, what could possibly Paramount do in terms of their broadcast to liven this game up? You remember the cricket back in the day, Test cricket, and they just have random bits of trivia and stuff, when it was kind of the middle of the session, nothing's happening. We need a game on the screen or something. You need it was hard not to turn off. It was like something has to happen because I want to watch every A-League game, but that was unwatchable. That first 45 minutes.
We needed a game of Jeopardy or something happening or something like that. Just something.
Man, and by the way, I don't know if the second half was as bad because I did stop watching. All right, I flicked on the F1. It was a red flag race. I was still watching that for more. I had no desire. And actually, my friend, I was trying to convince him to watch this game, and he was looking at me every 5 minutes like, "Are you serious? This is what we're watching. This is what we're spending our time with."
What it always is with these sort of games. these games always happen when you're trying to convince that one person, and you finally convince that one person to either come to a game or watch a game, and it turns into an absolute snooze fest. I remember last year I told 2 of my friends, come down to watch this Melbourne victory versus, I think they were playing the Mariners, right? And I said, there's this guy called Jason Cummings. He's playing, Central Coast. They're a lot of fun. Victory with the atmosphere would be great. Turned into the biggest snooze fest. And if it wasn't for Nishan Valupale scoring in the 90th minute, it would have been it still was one of the worst games of the year. But they came out and they're like, oh my God, I was so bored. It always turns into one of those. It's like when you show someone that movie or that song that you really like, yeah, it's really good. It's really good. And they're just like, I don't see it. But
100%.
Yeah, this game happened, right? It happened. That's it. Wanderers won. Kirpich scored. Missed the penalty. Good save from Reddy. There wasn't really anything to write home about this game at all. Very whelmed coming out of it. I mean, I haven't watched the video yet, but apparently the Wanderers have a team song that they sung after the game. Stoll, apparently there's been some comments about you potentially doing a rendition. So look, if you want to take a few seconds out to give it a listen,
I guarantee the song was more entertaining than the match. That's for sure. You shouldn't be singing. You should be apologizing. You should be releasing a statement apologizing for that football. God, it was bad. Look, congratulations to the Wanderers. I hope that they the crowd didn't look too big either. I hope it's bigger in the coming weeks. But with football like that, it's going to be hard to beat. Alan Riley makes the point: just eat a tomato and calm down. Alan, the pizza was full of beautiful tomato sauce. All right, I was enjoying the tomatoes, and the Wanderers were ruining my tomatoes. So, I just think, oh God, it was bad, and it's hard for me to say.
End of the day, it's 3 points game for the Wanderers. They haven't won many games over the last few seasons, so I guess that's something. They got something out of the game at least, and it's.
They actually tend to start pretty well, which makes their inevitable fall all the funnier.
Oh, well, Joey, I'm trying to bring some positivity to the podcast. All right, give the Wanderers something.
You're on TNC.
I'm gonna bring some positivity to the.
Well, I'll tell you what. You want to know? I got what this game was like. I got really upset in the first half of this game, and you know why? Because I found out, and I don't know how long this has been revealed, but I only found out about it today, that Holden aren't going to be doing V8 supercars anymore. I was so bored. I was reading articles about Bathurst, and Holden are leaving V8 supercars. When did this happen?
So who's replacing them, like Skoda?
I don't. This is an outrage. Holden won at Bathurst today, and then I found out it's their last ride at Bathurst. When did that happen?
Look, I don't want to get into this, but isn't it just Holden versus Ford? Isn't that the whole?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
If it's one V with the other, so just Ford,
someone
Ford
in the comments, give us.
Are they bringing Ferrari in? Is it going to be Ford versus Ferrari? What's the go?
Ferrari's going to win that, surely.
If you want to go watch Ford versus Ferrari streaming live on Disney Plus right now, so go get over there. I watched it on Disney Plus a few months ago. Great movie. No fusses with the streaming platform. All good.
This is what happens.
But let me just serious point.
Yeah, go on.
Free Rami Najjarine. Free Luke Ivanovic, free Stefan Kolikovsky.
Okay.
Very completely no sold that, mate. How much?
I want to get off this game. But
no. One more thing. Right. Stop. One more thing. Just in terms of Kolikovsky giving away that penalty, I actually thought he was a bit stiff. I thought that it was a bit unlucky, in my opinion. I think that was a case of stuff.
He was probably bored. He probably wanted something to happen. That was what was happening.
I thought he was just. Honestly, I just thought he was a bit stiff with that.
Yeah. Well, one of the best people to follow, in my opinion, on Twitter is the Brain Thinker, and he says not really a question, but Andromeda United. I don't know if I've totally mispronounced that.
Andromeda.
That's embarrassing for me. But anyway, can keep Bozanic. I'm worried Rudin brings him back in for Neuenhoff the first chance he gets.
Look, Neuenhoff was. I did like some of the things I saw from Neuenhoff.
Yeah,
I think that's definitely a positive. Yeah,
that's a silver line in an extremely.
One thing that I thought was a bit interesting was just seeing how wide Cassini Yengi was dropping. I mean, he wasn't necessarily in a 4-4-2, not taking up too many central positions. I thought that was a bit odd because you want to see him playing closer to goal, a bit more centrally. I don't know if that will change as the year goes on, but. I mean, Kirpich scored. They'll probably stick with this formation when they play Victory next week. So I guess we'll see what happens then. But yeah, Yeah, sorry, go on, Stoll.
Hiraldo makes the point, Western Sydney Wanderers, the most underperforming club in the league on and off the field, despite stiff competition. Brutal from Hiraldo, but I got to say, that's pretty true. So, mate, look, they got the win. That's the only thing really that I think they can take out of it. But otherwise, you have real disappointing start to the season. And this is also what I want to know. In the comments, let us know, what can Paramount Plus do in the broadcast so that we can stay interested in, we can stay watching it even when the game is boring? Because let's be honest, at least once a week, and maybe I'm being generous, one game of the round is absolutely totally forgettable. We need to have something going on in the broadcast that we still can watch to just pass the time. Whatever, trivia, I don't know, something has to happen. Let me know in the comments. But I think it's time to move away from the A-League. We'll talk about our fantasy team a little bit later. But let's welcome Taryn. Some would call her Taryn Hedo, but I think it's much more appropriate to call her Taryn Hendo because, well, what's going on? We bring people in, we take people out. Taryn Hedo is here. Taryn, welcome to the show. Apologies for misspelling your name. I get football, Henderson, Hendo. It all crosses for me. How are you?
It's okay. I'm well. I'm embracing it. I too am also missing from Liverpool's midfield, so we have a lot in common.
Boom, straight fire, straight to the bat. Second team.
I too also had ambitions to watch every A-League men's game this week, and it got to that final game. It was about 30 minutes into the first half, and I just thought to myself, I could be playing The Sims. I could be
anything.
The cottage living expansion pack. I could be, hanging out with my cows and some llamas, doing some cross stitching on The Sims, and I just thought, what's a better use of my time right now? I'm not. Could be The Sims. So I've had a great afternoon. Actually, I'm feeling great. Yeah.
Toro says via YouTube, just put Casablanca on. Yeah, I'd recommend that, or Ford versus Ferrari, or I don't know, go watch our podcast.
Any of the fine options on Disney Plus.
Yeah, or Stan Sport.
Go stream Werewolf by Night, streaming now on Disney Plus. Came out Friday night, or the new episode of She-Hulk or something.
Check out the Engine Foz interview, all right? Stan Sport, check it out.
New episode of Wrexham as well. Just any of the plethora of options on Disney Plus.
Taryn, let's talk about something that you did watch. The Matildas 4-1 win over South Africa. I'm going to give you some RBA results-based analysis. Good job, Matildas. You won a game. It's been a while. Tony G, look, I'll be honest with you. I just saw the highlights. My biggest takeaway is Tony G was wearing a scarf and he had the Madonna headphone mic thing going on. Like, look, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but that's a weird looking cover. All right.
Are you just picking up on this now, Stoll?
Man, no, but the scarf, was that new?
He's been wearing the scarf for months.
Have I forgotten that he wears a scarf?
Yeah, the scarf is like a constant part of his wardrobe now.
Bro, you're the coach, all right? You're not a fan who just jumped in. This is ridiculous. Anyway, Taryn, please talk to us. Make some more than just the RBA of the Matildas match against South Africa.
RBA, FBA, fashion-based analysis. You're going for there. They won, and that was probably the bare minimum for this game. It was nice to watch a game where the result never felt in jeopardy, and I think that's also something that's important. Within 10 minutes, it became evident that this wasn't will we win, it became by how much, which is fine. It's a good way to watch a game. It's significantly less stressful than other ways to watch the game. Obviously, the squad was impacted by a lot of injuries, but it was interesting the way that we set up. I think that we set up differently than the Canada games, and that was because Kyra Cooney-Cross and Katrina Gorry were sitting back as a kind of double pivot, like deep in midfield, and Mary Fowler still as the 10. They did that in an attempt, I think, to bring the wingbacks into the game more, and I think we saw that particularly on the left-hand side. Steph Catley had a lot of influence on the game. She played really well. But the sort of downside of that system was that there was a lot of the good things that we were beginning to see in Canada that involved the midfield were sort of not necessarily as evident. I don't think Mary Fowler really had much of a say in the game. A lot of what happened was sort of out wide, overloading South Africa, crosses into the box, and that was where the chances were coming from. So it was an interesting one for me. It's nice to get the result. It's nice to feel like we had the result. Nice to get a win. Nice for Courtney Vine to score her first international goals as well. Playing as 9, which fascinating. I suspect that she was playing as a 9, so Sam Kerr was ill, hadn't been training in the lead up, so she was relegated to the bench for this one. I suspect what happened was they wanted to keep the combinations of Kathleen Ford on the left and Grandin Russell on the right. And so rather than sort of putting Ford as a 9, which would seem the most logical option, they opted to keep her on the left to sort of train that combination up with Catley some more. But, Vine scored. Difficult to know what to say too much until we play Denmark, because I'm very fascinated to know if we keep this double pivot against Denmark, because if we do, I suspect that the midfield will be completely overrun, and it could cause quite a few issues.
Stephen wants to know via Twitter, has Courtney Vine done enough over her last 2 games against Canada and South Africa to secure her spot at the World Cup?
I hope so, but you never know. I think that she's the type of player that would be a fantastic option. I don't necessarily think that she'll start. I don't see her really as a starter in this team. But in the last 20, 30 minutes of games, when, especially in a game, if you're struggling to break someone down or you need something a little bit different, she provides that. So I think she should go, but again, who knows? I hope so. And I think her starting as number 9 was definitely a show of confidence in her from Tony Gustafsson.
Taryn, I wanted to ask, sorry, Joe, just a quick question. I wanted to ask you about one of Tony's comments in the post-game press conference. It was it was probably as classic Tony G as Tony G could be, but he spoke about Steph Catley and Caitlin Ford are like FIFA with the perfect chemistry. I want that all over the field. What did you make of that line? I mean, he's now throwing in video game references, but doesn't even throw in Football Manager. Like, he's gone for the inferior football game. What are your thoughts, I guess, on those comments in regards to, chemistry and all that sort of stuff there?
I mean, yeah, they dominated that left-hand side. There was a definite plan to overload South Africa on the left in particular. Caitlin Ford, especially in the second half before she was subbed off, was very dominant down that side. There was also a nice bit of interplay. I thought Kyra Cooney-Cross, despite not playing in her best role, I think that's fair to say, I thought she played fine. I thought she had a good game. Despite the issues with her playing so deep and all of those things. Yeah, I mean, it's true, they do, but again, in a game like this, if Sam Kerr were to be injured at the World Cup or in a competitive fixture, you would think that Caitlin Ford goes to a 9. So it is fascinating that he opted to continue to sort of grow that combination instead of trying Caitlin Ford as a 9, where you would expect, again, in a competitive game, that she would go if Sam Kerr was unavailable.
So there was a question that came in to Edmund Al Young. I guess he's trying to say what did instead of who did, but what did TNC make of Tony G hitting back at the criticism in the ABC interview saying he's meeting his metrics and the haters don't get it, or something to that effect? I mean, some would call me a hater, but
You reckon?
I mean, potentially I don't get it because, man, your performances aren't good and your team's losing. But sure, we're on the way to success.
I haven't read the interview, so I'm not going to comment on the contents of the interview. I would just say what I've been trying to judge Tony Gustafsson on throughout his tenure has just been. I'd like to think everybody on this show has been very cognizant and recognized the different hats that he's trying to wear and develop depth and bring, professionalism and, improve their results and all of that sort of stuff. I think our biggest issue with Gustafsson hasn't been that he's trying to do those things. Our issue has consistently been, has he been doing those things well enough heading into a home Women's World Cup? And it's very obvious now at this point that there's no appetite to move on him from Football Australia. The time to arguably do that, if it ever was going to happen, was after the Asian Cup. So it also all seems redundant now. All we can do is prognosticate on the trajectory, and albeit acknowledging that national team form is not linear and it can go up and down very quickly. However, if it was linear, they would not be moving currently at a trajectory that would suggest that they were going to do damage at a home World Cup, which I know there are other KPIs involved in Tony Gustafsson tenure. However, I would think at least making a deep run at a home World Cup, what was widely recognized as a tournament when we won hosting rights, as a tournament that you could make a deep run in, and possibly the best chance Australia will have to win a World Cup, men's and women's, possibly ever. I would like to think that making a deep run on that is still the most important KPI for the Matildas head coach.
Maybe even for the whole national body, to be honest.
Yeah.
Geraldo makes the point, a lot of hot air in that interview. That's him saying that. Geraldo, I enjoyed the 10 or so minutes between Chidiac coming on and Ford, Catley, and Grant coming off. Julian makes the point, it was great to see Chloe Lagazzo back from injury. And then Toro's asked the question, South Africa were missing a lot of their players too, weren't they? Is that the case, Taryn?
Yeah, South Africa were missing 6 from the lineup that won the African Cup of Nations, so they were not at full strength by any means either. So it's, again, it makes it all the more difficult to sort of read into the result. We can read into the way that we played and it worked to some extent, but keeping in mind, out of the 4 goals, 2 were from corners, 1 was a cross, and 1 was Caitlin Ford cutting in from wide. So yes, that overload worked. We scored goals. Was it, will it be effective against better opposition? I think I would like to reserve my judgment on the window until after the Denmark game, because if he goes with the same system and we get annihilated, that shows a lot. If we go with a different system and we do well, hopefully with one of the best midfield options, Alex Chidiac, starting the game and playing 90 minutes as an 8 in the role that she should be playing, that would be fantastic.
What are you hoping to see from the Denmark game?
Alex Chidiac. Yeah, I do think it requires a different approach. I suspect and I hope that the way that we played was a system in which we hope to break down teams that we know aren't going to challenge us in midfield anyway. So I think we knew that there wouldn't be we would have more of the ball. We knew that we would be able to overload them. We knew that we had the height advantage in the box, and we knew that we were going to be able to score in those ways. Obviously against Denmark it's going to be different. So I suspect that we'll go back to the more traditional 4-3-3 that we've been playing, that Catley and Grant will be a little bit more conservative. And again, I hope that Alex Chidiac starts in that role and can contribute to a more dynamic midfield, that we can play in a system that shows the best of Fowler, like we saw for 45 minutes against Canada. And, hopefully a result. I can't help but hope for a result. And I know that it's not the be all and end all, but I think that it's something that we need to start to see. Denmark have good players, but they're in a very precarious spot, I suppose, after their Euros group stage exit. If we're going to beat European opposition at the moment, Denmark are ripe for the picking. So I think a result is really important.
Ben Smith, friend of the pod, is proposing something all the way from, I don't know, Ben, where you are. You in Belgium? You were in Belgium a few days ago. Wherever you are in Europe. TNC Melbourne meetup before the Sweden game. Who says no? Could happen. Well, yeah,
as long as are you coming down to Melbourne, Stoll?
12th of November. Sounds like it's probably close to the Champions League. I don't know. I'll have to see. Potentially.
I will be in Sydney on Tuesday and then flying back at 10 p.m. at night. So I'm going to be rooted. So I'm going to be catching a replay of the game.
Well, anyway. All right. Well, Taryn, thank you so much for joining us. We hope it was more enjoyable than playing The Sims.
Hold on. We've got incredibly important questions coming in from the chat.
Torres asked, are those Yarra Jets championships pennants on Taryn's wall?
They're actually union flags from Trades Hall. So join your union. That's what I'll say about that.
Oh, look, Comrade Halloran has entered the chat.
All right. Well, Taryn, with that very important message, we thank you so much for coming on and joining this TNC union. And let me know when we're going on strike, because that'd be a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me.
All right, great. So Ben Smith has let us know that he's in Amsterdam, heading to Berlin tomorrow. Very Jason Bourne vibes about Ben.
Ben, are you going to a game? Like, you're in Europe. Are you going to a game? Like, come on, man. Like, you got some
Ajax.
He was at the Ajax stadium.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
what about going to a Bundesliga game or anything? Like, what's the game?
Well,
Ben's
in
Union playing in Europe this week. Union Berlin. So go check that out. I don't know. Not easy to get tickets.
Ben is in Amsterdam. He needs to visit the local bakeries and sample the special Amsterdam delights.
Stoll, question.
Yeah.
Not question, actually, statement. You said that Matildas game is close to a Champions League game. The final round of the Champions League ends on the 3rd of November. That's a week early, mate. Earlier than the Matildas game. I think I got plenty of time to make a trip down.
I will do my best.
If it was footy season, we could go down and watch we'll go watch an AFLW final. We can go watch the AFL men's. The next year, come down.
Man, the Swans play next to my house all season. I never go see it. All right, screw that. Look, it's time. It's time we talk. Okay, little choose your own adventure to you two. Should we talk about the Australia Cup fallout and reaction? Or quite a serious subject. Or should we talk about TNC Fantasy League? What do you want to? I think we should finish on fantasy. So let's
go Australia Cup.
Well,
let's go Australia Cup fallout and reaction.
I can run down the week's developments. So this week, in two separate press releases, Football Australia has revealed that they have banned 2 individuals for life from Football Australia sanctioned events due to their actions at the Australia Cup final. I will quote it exactly. The conduct in question relates to a fascist salute or similar gesture conducted during the match and captured on the host broadcast. Also, footage has since emerged debunking just one, I think so far, of the claims that Sydney United fans booed the national anthem. Video has emerged of them singing the national anthem. So national anthem,
which I did point out last week. You listen to TNC, you get the exclusives.
I don't think any of us actually on. I think the reason Josh and I pre-prepared written statements was so we could be very deliberate with what we talked about, and I think I'm quite comfortable in reiterating condemnation for Nazi salutes. And video has also emerged of an individual
You
appearing
pronounce
to
Nazis weird. Nazis. I've never heard Nazis.
sorry
Nazi goring.
Video has emerged of an individual appearing to make a racist gesture towards a black player in the Australia Cup final as well, which it rightfully deserves condemnation. And earlier this week as well, Football Australia CEO James Johnson penned an open letter to the footballing public surrounding the thing, which I think I would like to maybe see Football Australia do a bit more on that front. I feel like there's been a real vacuum that has opened up surrounding this issue, and a lot of the waters have been muddied. We know that investigations remain ongoing. As I mentioned earlier in the show, Sydney United have responded to a show cause notice surrounding the entire affair. Because like Melbourne Victory with the Josh Cavallo stuff, and like Sydney FC with the bottle throwing stuff, ultimately responsibility for this falls on the club. But we're not sure what the investigations are actually about. I think it would be valuable if we had a bit more information surrounding that. And I think it would also be valuable if we saw, given that this story has penetrated the mainstream, if we did see James Johnson or even Chris Nicku going out and not talking to poxy podcasts like us with a very limited reach, but places I'm being serious here. And like go to places like SBS, the ABC, Nine, the major broadsheets, and actually talking about this and
Stan Sport FC.
Sort of like not leaving a vacuum, because, in the aftermath of this event, you've seen there's a lot of disappointing stuff. Obviously, the game itself was disappointing, but there's also disappointing stuff in the aftermath as well. Like I've seen comments surrounding stuff like accusing all Croatians of being racist. It's in their blood. That's terrible.
Well,
like
very racist.
It's a very it's a very racist thing itself,
idiots.
and that's like
absolutely.
And like stuff like disband all. I'm going to quote them here: disband all ethnic clubs. I can't quite wrap my head around that thought process. Where in the name of inclusion, you would talk about the importance of inclusion and respect, and then immediately advocate for banning people the right to assembly and congregation based upon shared race, ethnicity, or culture. Like that's so I really hope that I would like to see some of the oxygen taken out of what has turned into a battlefield basically between rival camps, and a focus on the issues at hand and the need to investigate and find the individuals responsible and ban them, and for Football Australia to lead on this front. Like video has also emerged surrounding the Welcome to Country, not discounting that it wasn't observed, but video has emerged talking about how it was difficult to hear and why that's the reason it wasn't observed. Others in the stadium have pushed back against that. Others that were watching the coverage and were in the stadium have pushed back on that and said that that's not the reason. If that is being investigated, it'd be good to know, because it's maybe the result of this investigation going to be the next time there's a Welcome to Country, it's louder on the PA system, and there's more done to make people aware, or is there going to be more active efforts to communicate with capos and other fan leaders before it to make sure it's observed, that sort of thing. It'd be really great to get that sort of information so that the conversation doesn't devolve into hatred, essentialism, stereotyping, and civil war, when it should be focused on the bad actors and stamping out them and making sure and taking proactive steps to make sure that this doesn't happen again in a constructive manner.
Geraldo says bad reactions to bad reactions recurring. And that's what I kind of feel like. But you know what? I really would like to see Sydney United come out and say, we are going to look. They're saying the Nazis. I'm not talking about all Sydney United fans. I'm talking about these 10 or 20 Nazis that we see through those photos on social media that have circulated, and the supposedly the 5 or 6 people in the stadium who did the Nazi salute in the stadium. To me, you say we are going to actively kick these people out of our club. They will not do they not have anything to do with our club. Because people at Sydney United must know who some of these people are. All right, if they're constantly going to the games and doing the Nazi salutes. To me, like, it is true that you cannot be part of a second division if these people are in your fan groups and if these people are part of your club and coming every week. You just cannot be in a second division. So I don't know why Sydney United, if they say, look, it's such a small element of our support, great, then it should be very easy to get rid of such a small element because there's not that many of them. So that's what I would like to see in the near future. I know these things take time, and you want to do it properly, and you want to make sure that you get it run. But I just don't understand how. I would love to see a second division. I would love to see Sydney United in that second division. Well, I'd love to see Sydney United, to be honest, in the first division and then promotion relegation. But I don't understand how you think that you can be in a professional league and have Nazis. It's just
the entire
it's a ridiculous statement.
I'd recur with Niraldo. Bad reactions to bad reactions are recurring, and like I said, it would be. I want to see some leadership on this front. It feels like everything at this point has been very reactive. I'd like to see leadership from Football New South Wales, albeit they've recently had their CEO step down, but Football New South Wales, Football Australia, to take some of this oxygen out of spiraling conversation. And, there's people that signed up to lead our game, and some of them are very well remunerated to lead our game, so we can, sort this out. Get rid of the people, committing these acts of hatred that everybody, I think, is, condemned. I think it's only the people on the absolute fringes that have been trying to say that Nazi salutes are fine, actually. And it's just, I think Tony Popovich spoke about this really well when a journalist asked him about this at his press conference. Obviously, he's a Sydney United legend. He was there to present the trophy of Sydney United won, and I think he spoke about it really well. I'm going to quote him. It's a shame because it was a wonderful game, a wonderful occasion. A fantastic football club had an opportunity to play in a final. Hopefully next time that happens, we can just talk about the great colour and passion and noise that a football club from the NPL can bring. He also added, obviously he's not a fan of Nazi salutes or anything like that. And it is true, and it's prevented the lessons from the game being absorbed. The magic of the cup, the power that exists to, re-engage people from outside the A-Leagues. It's all unfortunately been lost, and I think that's a real shame.
All right, well, let's move on to something that is also a shame, but not as terrible, is our start to the fantasy season. Guys, give me your takeaway of your biggest
I can run down the league's results if you'd like.
Ooh, yeah, go on.
All right. And what I'm going to do is we have a TNC league. We've got some people in it. 1 week's notice to everybody in the TNC league that isn't an active member of the TNC family. I'm going to grant you anonymity for this week. If you don't want it known that you're in the TNC fantasy league, let me know by next week. Otherwise, next week when we read out the results, we're just going to reveal your identity, and everybody can laugh at you. But game 1, Lockie Flanagan versus Nick Stoll. Final score.
But not final score. What about there? What about the man? I had
this is the final score. This hasn't been.
No, the players from the Jets and Central Coast Mariners game are down as DNP.
Oh boy!
Which it looks like the round will have ended. So, based upon looking like the Mariners and Newcastle game just won't count for points, looks like the final score is Lockie 56, Nick Stoll 42.
No, look at my team.
Young boy.
Only Nunny in double figures. The rest of them, come on, man. What happened to Western United's defense? I had 2 defenders in there. Tomoki Imai, I got to get rid of him. Oh, what an absolute disaster, of the season.
Okay. Wait, who are some of these other people in our league?
Ben Smith says, I already hate my team. I believe he's in our league.
Did we just get 4 randoms added to our league?
Probably.
Good. FML, I picked Berenguer and he didn't even make the squad. Combine that with the F3 washout and RIP my fantasy team. Who actually? And
we had just had 4 randoms added to our league. What the hell?
Yeah, we. Well,
it's all right. Well, good luck to the randoms. Look, this is a podcast, not a fantasy admin thing. Say some results or get off the pod. Let's go.
All right, I'm trying to look at the results again. Where's the head-to-head? I lost 59-62 to ESPN Australia and New Zealand editor Mike Wise. Thank you, Sasse, for your red card, which your negative score meant that I lost that game.
How did Debano go?
Well, yeah, you completely just skipped over mine, Joey.
Because I was trying to find it because I've got several different.
To find. There's
Debano.
Alino's bridge got absolutely hammered. Nick Debano got absolutely hammered by Josh Parrish.
80 to 55.
And meanwhile, Teo Pellizzeri absolutely hammered Taryn Haddo.
Okay, can we? Who's in Josh's team?
Let me have a look at this, all right? Because I got this up in front of me, all right?
Okay, all right, you talk about this. I'm going to try to kick the randoms.
Yeah, Josh was lucky because he captained Becker, so his vice captain was Nani, and Nani got 12 points normally, and then was upgraded to 24. He had Jack Hingett, who got 12 points. He had Ben Halloran, who got 14. Tommy Masella, who got 11. So, like, half these guys aren't going to score, double digits every week. This is what I mean when I said marathon, not a sprint, guys. Like, look, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. It's only match day 1. If we're going to make judgments on fantasy after match day 1, then Jesus Christ, what are we doing here?
On a semi-serious point, I think it does help the league. Like, it made me more invested. Every time the lineups come out, I mean, I just saw it even within our group chat. We were sending each other lineups saying this person's out and this person's in. And, someone had Piscopo in there and he wasn't starting and stuff like that. It does make you more invested, I think, in the league. So I think it's a good thing. And I'm glad to see quite a few people embraced it.
Big shout out to Economidis and Danny Caballo, who bolstered my score, made it look honourable with scores of 17 and 11. So Caballo's assist to James Donachie carried a lot of weight. That's what I said, guys. Get defenders who get assists, because if they do, they're going to get scores going through the bloody roof. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I thought I'd have defenders who keep clean sheets like Western United did. And got injured, and Lacroix scored an own goal. So that was a great thing.
You don't get more than one defender from each team. You get one, because then if they have a bad game, then they're all going to get bad scores. It's fantasy 101, mate.
Yeah, but hold on. You do, because if you get all the Man City players right now, you just get clean sheet. That's what Western United was last season. They 1-0 their way to the title. Anyway,
every team has good defenses these days. You know what I mean? You go victory, all good.
Predictions for next week. Let's have a look at the games. I'll share them on my screen.
Kick the randoms.
Yeah.
God.
Don't worry about the randoms. It's fine.
Don't worry about the randoms.
Friday night, Brisbane Roar v Melbourne City. Give me a quick prediction.
Melbourne City.
Yeah, Melbourne City 3-1.
Melbourne City 3-0.
Oh, okay. I'll say Melbourne City 2-1. Newcastle Jets, the box office Jets, baby, v Perth Glory.
Newcastle 4-1.
Newcastle 3-0.
Manita. Newcastle Jets 5. Perth Glory 0. Melbourne Victory v Western Sydney Wanderers.
Victory 2, Western Sydney 0.
Victory 2-0.
I'm going to say Victory 2-0 as well. So maybe that's the one.
It has 2-0 written all over it, doesn't it? Early goal, and then a 90th minute seal.
Victory, too much quality to lose that game, but they prefer to play in transition. Yeah.
Wellington Phoenix, Central Coast Mariners.
Ooh, it's a good game.
In Wellington.
Central Coast 2-1.
2-2 draw.
Ooh, I'm going to say 1-1 draw. Macarthur v Adelaide United.
Oh.
Macarthur 2, Adelaide 1.
2-2, Adelaide 2 goals in stoppage time to tie it.
Macarthur.
We just did that one.
1. Adelaide 0. I'm also wanting to give my predictions as well, Joe. I know you hate me speaking on this pod, but it's part of.
I thought you already did.
I let you guys go first as a good host, always. Western United versus Sydney FC.
Western United 1-0.
Yeah, Western United 1-0.
1-1. All right, let's go to your questions that have come in. But just on that, I think maybe I know who's burning this.
Is that someone trying to communicate from the UFO?
Yeah, maybe there's some reception on the UFO.
Maybe this was him all along. I just want to go back and have a look at
I would like to comments. See it. All games under 2.5.
Looking back at all these comments, 100%. These guys, this is too sus, man.
All right. Well, maybe there's some reception on the UFO. All right, let's get to
like look at this comment. Oh, no, that was A-Liga. That was Alan. They have the same sort of thing. So I thought, oh my god.
Keep an eye out on A-Liga. Maybe that's a good friend of theirs. Hey, Shane Henry asked, does the A-Liga have a mental health awareness round? Asking for a friend who's awkwardly found his mental health take a hit after just one incomplete round of watching how most A-Liga teams and coaches try to function. Brutal, but
wow.
Not bad, not bad. Hey, shout out to a friend of the pod from last week, Jim. After the first round, he says, if you've got to change one of your predictions from the preview show, what would it be? We believe that he didn't, in fact, make the Brisbane Roar game. He was, in fact, too intoxicated, but he had a great time at the whiskey show and, watched Brisbane Roar on the couch. But your predictions from last week, Joey, anything that you'd change?
No, unlike some other members of this podcast, I am not going to sell my Macarthur stock just yet.
I think Stoll's the only one that has sold his stocks. I don't think anyone. I haven't gotten off yet.
Hey! That was just a little message for the chat. All right, I haven't got off my.
It's our podcast art this week, Nick Stoll.
The one thing I would say is I said, first of all, champion victory, premier victory. Feeling pretty good about that. Feeling pretty good about saying wooden spoon glory. Mikkel Tudze had golden boot and Papa's coach the didn't say anything for the.
Look, I might need to revise my wooden spoon pick for Brisbane Roar.
Who do you have for? Oh, you don't think they're going to be wooden spoon?
Yeah, I don't know. I know they're going to be around there, but I don't know. We'll have a look at these in a bit of time.
What about you said champion Western United? You still on that?
100%.
Really interesting. Well, by the way, me and you shared a Johnny Warren medalist with Arzani. I don't know.
We all did. All three of us had Arzani as the Johnny Warren medalist.
Hey, we're sticking to this, all right? Like right to the end.
All right. So that's one question. Tommy Dolman, he says hasty conclusions and complete overreaction for all teams after one round of football, please. I mean, I feel like we were pretty good today. We didn't go too much.
Oh, hasty, yeah, no, nothing too much.
It's interesting. On Macarthur, Edmund says, after jumping on the McBull bandwagon after the Australia Cup, should I jump back off right away?
It's too early.
And actually, after the first 25 minutes, they kind of came into it a bit. So we give them a bit of thing.
Wait to see who starts up front and who starts as their sixth next week.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point.
Then we can maybe have a bit of more of a chat.
If Carter starts up front, I'm absolutely selling that bull stock. What team selection formation surprised you most during round one? Probably a round or two early, but any side's performance make you think they were underestimated?
We're going five at the back with Armiento. Was interesting, and it worked. Now we'll just see whether or not that was a one-game thing or if that's permanent moving forward.
I guess just to give the listeners a bit of an insight into Friday night, we were all kind of stumped because we didn't know what the hell happened to Curtis Good, Nuno Ration, and Florent Berengay when the Melbourne City lineup came out before they put it up on Twitter, because they actually, if you want to get in early, bit of a cheat code here. Go on fantasy about an hour and a half before kickoff and see who's got the ticks. Because if they've got ticks, they're starting. And we're going through, and it was like, Geordie Boss. Yeah, Geordie Boss, Scott Jamieson and stuff. We're like, what is going on? Because Lecky's starting and everything. Boss can't play on the wing. There's no centre-backs here. And then we realised that literally everything hit the proverbial and they had Jamo playing centre-back. But then we also thought that maybe... Boss was playing further up. Lecky was playing in midfield, and O'Neill and Gamulka were playing centre back. It was just all over the place. But probably that, because we didn't know that, that Good got injured and Berengay got injured and Race got injured. So when we saw the City lineup, it was a touch surprising to see Jamo play centre back because, I mean, as we alluded, even spoke in the press conference, I don't think in his 300 games, I think there'd be very short amount of appearances. He's probably played centre back throughout his entire career.
Hold on. We're getting a comment coming in.
It's a great comment.
Laser, lol, too early. You guys have a team you haven't seen yet, pumping Perth by a minimum of 3 goals. But Laser, I have seen Perth already this season.
Yeah, that's true. That is absolutely true. All right, so Fiat Multipler says Dad's analysis of Adelaide. They go so fast out of defense, then they get there outside the box and everything stops. Hashtag the handbrake. I think that's a decent call.
See, we are also the Australian football's leader in Dad's based on analyst. First, Mr. Jukic. Now this Dad's. Well,
I mean, speaking of your dad,
where's
analysis?
Your dad is actually being paid for his football.
Your dad's take on Twitter yesterday about him response to Vince Rigari about Nani being booed, and he was just straight to the point. Loved it. So that's what we got there from Lynch Senior.
What did he say? What did Lynch Senior say?
I have to pull it up again.
Why you do that?
Good. I think it was just along the lines of Vince Rigari asking why are they booing Nani, and just he responds because he's their best player.
Yeah, that does happen. That's why Arzani got booed against City United. Which Subway Socceroo hopeful has made the best start to the A-Liga campaign?
Economides.
Yeah. You know what? I think it was good. It just
Curtis Good. He didn't play.
No, I think he was always going to be in the squad, but I think Jamie McLaren scoring nice.
He had a decent game.
Yeah,
nobody has ever questioned McLaren's ability to score goals in the A-League.
Sure, but I think I'm not convinced that Taggart is a locked-in starter, and I'd be interested to see.
I think Duke's starting against Friends.
Okay. Jeez, Duke against Teo Hernandez. I'm looking forward to that. Anyways, just in regards to that, the other one who I actually think, because we've kind of forgotten about him in this, but remember, he was part of that squad in June. But the fact Nick D'Agostino scored,
and a good goal,
just keeps him in contention. So just keep an eye on that. That was a very nice header, by the way.
Yeah, like really got some power on it. So impressive stuff. All right, well, look.
There's a question in the YouTube comments, Nick Stoll, if you were going to read it out. So
did you go to the cine game, Stoll? I went to a nice restaurant.
Couple of comments before that. I know.
Here we go. Stephen Paletti.
There we go.
Joey, what did you think of?
No. Let's Stoll read it out.
I don't understand what this comment means. That's why I didn't read it out. Question: what did Joey think of the White Rabbit / Wyatt month-long story? I don't know what that means. White Rabbit.
I love how confused.
I very much enjoyed the payoff.
All right, whatever.
It was a great payoff, Stephen. It was a sensational payoff.
Stephen, don't ask questions about things that I don't know about. All right.
They left a comment, and you're supposed to be the king of the comments.
Exactly.
I am. When they make
just
sense
leave
to me.
comments out,
Look, where's our spam bots this week? Dr. Firmino, did Dr. Firmino not do anything this week? Dr. Firmino, you've struggled, all right? Dr. Firmino needs to fix some of these footballers.
Did Dr. Firmino happen before or after we had our cyber attack?
I don't know, but you know what is funny? Despite the technical difficulties of last week's show, I got more texts complimenting us on that show than ever before. So
do you know, like,
I was actually amazing edit to hide the technical difficulties.
Joey, I was actually after the show, I played it out loud while I was downstairs, and my mum heard it, and she even thought it was bloody hilarious. Like, because I was just playing it loud. She's like, "What are you listening to?" I'm like, "Don't worry, this is a masterpiece right here, right?"
There you go. That edit with Josh Parrish's voiceover that edit was all me.
That was good. That went with the music as well. Joey, good stuff, mate. You've created quality. Look, guys, tune in next week. We will be coming to you probably around, I'm going to say 7 p.m., 7:30 p.m.
When's kickoff next? The last kickoff?
5 p.m.
5 p.m. But it's in Melbourne. So myself and Nick Garno will be coming to you from Amy Park.
Yeah.
From the Michael Lynch Memorial.
I'm laying down the marker right now. She's going to hate me for this, but I'm going to try to get Anna Harrington on the pod as well.
Come on, Anna. Come on the pod. You're a
Come
friend
on,
of the
Harry.
pod.
You
need
can do
to
it.
be a part of this pod. Look,
Hashtag Harrow for TNC.
Harrow for TNC. Look, we've had a great time tonight. Special thanks to Taryn and Josh for making cameos, and special thanks to everyone who commented and everyone who shares and reviews. And I saw recently that our reviews on Spotify are like pretty good, like a lot of 5-star reviews. So thank you for that. It does mean a lot to us. It is very helpful to us. So if you can please keep doing it. Please keep sharing the pod. Please keeping the memes going. Vince is rich. We make fun of Nick DeBano's surname. Ante's in a UFO.
Is he now? Is he now?
Look, he might, the UFO might have
comments.
Nick Stoll loves tomatoes.
I love tomatoes.
Hey, what do we
Josh
have?
Parrish wears a giant hat and is a regional politician.
Yeah.
We need a database of memes.
There's so many.
Respond to our live post. So this stream right now, in the comments of this stream, leave us your favorite TNC meme.
Yeah, and what Stoll, Joey, what's for dinner tonight, guys?
Oh, I gotta cook. Maybe escavillada, which is this basically thing where you like roast vegetables for like an hour and a half.
Yes,
and then like there's just it's like you put like
you're gonna eat dinner at like 9:30.
Yeah, it's all good, bro. I got the Spanish vibes. Don't worry. 9:30 dinner is no problem for me, my friend.
I'm going full bodybuilder. I'm trying to watch what I eat with my meal, so I'm going to have rice.
Build your tongue.
Rice with
flavor
egg,
in your mouth.
frozen vegetables, and mince with probably chili sauce.
You know what I'm having, guys? I'm having the shout out to these guys. I've spoken to Joey and others about it so many times. There's this place near my house that do these Italian burgers, right? They are like the best thing ever. And I'm getting the Mario Balotelli. I kid you not. It's actually called the Mario Balotelli.
Does it cost $8?
No, it costs double that, actually. It costs like 17.
Well, it should only cost $8. Because he's an 8 out of 10.
The NPL Victoria alumni, Nick Krisharatis, who I'm pretty sure still runs the joint. So you tell him that. But yes.
Man, Run the Memes is making fun of my bodybuilding thing, man. You should see my deadlift.
All right, look, there's enough.
Head over to Joey's Instagram. Is it Joey Lynchy for all?
Yeah, but it's private.
Well, if Joey,
I don't post my lifting videos in public.
Don't worry about building your body. Build your palate. Have some amazing tomatoes. Look, that's all we have time for. 2 hours and 16 into it. We'll see you next week at around 7:30. Thank you so much to everyone tuning in, and thanks.
Bye.